Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What If. So in this video, we will see what if Ben 10 joined the villains. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Breaking Point. The rust bucket skidded to a halt outside the smoking plumber headquarters. Ben Tennyson jumped out before it fully stopped, his green eyes narrowed on the building's collapsed eastern wing. "Grandpa, I'm going in," Ben called, already flipping through the Omnitrix dial. Max leaned out the window. "Ben, wait for backup. The structural integrity, people are trapped in there." Ben slammed down on the watch. Green light engulfed him as his body expanded, skin hardening into red rock lined with molten cracks. Heat blast. The fire alien blasted into the air on a column of flame, leaving Max and Gwen shouting behind him. The problem with backup was simple: it took too long, and Ben didn't do waiting. Not anymore. At 16, the Omnitrix had been his for 6 years. 6 years of saving people, fighting aliens, and getting grief for every mistake while his successes were forgotten. Inside, the building was a disaster. Smoke filled the hallways, and chunks of ceiling blocked his path. Heat blast melted through fallen metal beams, following the sounds of coughing and cries for help. "Hello. Plumber HQ evacuation service here," Ben called, trying to keep things light despite the situation. 3 officers were trapped in a security room, a massive support beam pinning one to the floor. The others looked up in shock when heat blast burst through the door. "Tennyson." The senior officer, Jenkins, reached for his blaster. "Stand down. This is a secure facility." Ben ignored the weapon. "Seriously? I'm here to save you guys. Put that thing away before you shoot someone important, like me." Jenkins didn't lower his weapon. "This incident is code black. No unauthorized aliens permitted, even you." "Fine, be stubborn." Heat blast rolled his eyes and focused on the trapped officer. "This is gonna get hot. Don't move." He carefully melted the metal beam enough to reshape it, creating space for the injured plumber to slide free. The woman gasped in relief, clutching her leg. Jenkins still hadn't lowered his weapon. "Tennyson, I'm ordering you to leave. Now." The ceiling groaned. Heat blast glanced up to see hairline fractures spreading. "We don't have time for your rule book. This whole place is coming down." He scooped up the injured officer before Jenkins could protest and blasted a hole through the wall, creating a direct path outside. "Follow me if you want to live. Or stay here and get flattened. Your choice." Outside, emergency crews had arrived. Medical teams rushed to take the injured officer from Heat Blast's arms. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest beeped red, and seconds later, Ben stood in place of the fire alien, coughing from the smoke. Gwen ran over, her hands glowing with mana. "Ben. Are there more people inside?" "Yeah, Jenkins and another guy, but an explosion rocked the building's foundation." Ben didn't hesitate. He slammed down on the Omnitrix again, transforming into XLR-8. The speedster alien zipped back into the building in a blur of motion. Inside, the situation had deteriorated. Fire had reached some kind of power core, and energy discharges crackled through the air. Ben found Jenkins and the other officer pinned down behind a console as the ceiling began to collapse. "Told you so," Ben quipped, scooping them up in his arms. "Hold on tight and try not to throw up." He navigated the collapsing building at super speed, dodging falling debris and electrical discharges. As they neared the exit, a massive explosion sent them flying through the air. Ben curled around the plumbers, taking the brunt of the impact as they hit the ground outside. The Omnitrix timed out. Ben groaned, his back screaming in pain as he pushed himself up. People were shouting all around him. Emergency crews rushed forward. Jenkins shoved Ben aside. Secure the perimeter. No one in or out. Ben stumbled to his feet. Hey, thanks for saving my life, would be nice. Jenkins turned on him, face contorted with anger. This is your fault, Tennyson. What? Ben stared in disbelief. The explosion pattern matches pyronite energy signatures. Your alien form caused the secondary explosions. That's impossible. I was careful, we have it on security footage. Jenkins gestured to another officer, who turned a tablet to show Ben the damning evidence. There he was, as heat blast, passing near a power conduit that subsequently exploded. That wasn't me. I mean, it was me, but I didn't cause that. Ben protested. Something else must have triggered it. Max pushed through the crowd, looking grave. Ben, come with me. Now. Grandpa, you don't believe this, do you? Ben asked as Max led him away from the scene. I was helping. Max's expression was unreadable. The footage doesn't look good, Ben. So what? You know I wouldn't do that on purpose. Intent isn't the issue. Max lowered his voice. This isn't the first incident. The plumbers have been tracking a pattern of escalation in your methods. Escalation? Ben laughed incredulously. You mean getting the job done? 3 civilians hospitalized after your fight with Zomboso last month. The university lab destroyed taking down Dr. Onimo. The crater in downtown from the Forever Knights battle. Ben threw his hands up. They were bad guys. Sometimes things break when you're saving the world. The plumbers believe the Omnitrix might be influencing your judgment. Max wouldn't meet his eyes. They want to run some tests. On you and the watch. Ben took a step back. Tests? Like a lab rat? No way. It's just temporary, until we understand what's happening. Nothing is happening. I'm doing my job, the job you taught me to do. Gwen approached cautiously. Ben, please calm down. Grandpa's trying to help. By treating me like a criminal. Ben's voice cracked. After everything I've done. Before either could answer, a squad of plumbers surrounded them, weapons raised. Magister Patelladay stepped forward. Benjamin Tennyson, by authority of Plumber Statute 5961, I'm placing you under restricted status pending investigation. What does that mean? Ben demanded, though he already knew. The Omnitrix will be temporarily deactivated and placed in secure storage. Ben's hand instinctively covered the watch. You're not taking it. Ben, Max pleaded, this is procedure. Cooperate, and we'll sort this out. Procedure? Ben's voice dropped dangerously. When has the Omnitrix ever been procedure? 2 plumbers moved forward with restraints and some device Ben recognized as a dampening field generator. In that moment, something shifted inside him. 6 years of thankless heroism, of missing normal teenage life, of putting everyone else first, and this was his reward. Last chance, Tennyson, Patelladay warned. Surrender the Omnitrix willingly. Ben looked at his grandfather, searching for support, for understanding. What he saw instead was resignation. You're really going to let them do this? Ben asked quietly. Max put a hand on his shoulder. It's temporary, Ben. Trust the system. Those words, trust the system, were the final straw. The same system that had classified him as a threat. The same system that was about to strip away the Omnitrix, the part of him that had defined his life since he was 10. I trusted you, Ben said, shrugging off Max's hand. In one fluid motion, he activated the Omnitrix and slammed down on the dial. Green light flashed as his body transformed into Ghost Freak, the spectral alien's single eye narrowing at the plumbers. Ben, don't. Gwen cried, mana glowing around her hands. Ghost Freak became intangible as dampening fields activated around him. He phased through the plumbers, his voice echoing eerily. You want the watch? Come and get it. Chaos erupted. Plumbers fired containment beams that passed harmlessly through his intangible form. Gwen tried to trap him in a mana bubble, but he slipped through it like smoke. Max shouted for everyone to stand down, but no one listened. One of the plumbers activated an ultrasonic disruptor that sent waves of pain through Ghost Freak's form. Ben howled and instinctively shifted, slapping the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. The flash of green revealed Diamond Head, crystalline spikes erupting from his body. Enough! Ben roared, sending a barrage of crystal shards that pinned plumbers to vehicles and walls, careful to avoid lethal shots but showing no mercy. Gwen flung a mana disc at him. Ben, stop this. You're making it worse. The disc shattered against his diamond skin. Worse? They just proved I can't trust any of you. Diamond Head's crystalline body grew and expanded, creating a barrier between him and the plumbers. Max tried to approach, but Ben formed a crystal wall that separated them. Ben, please, Max called from the other side. This isn't you. The watch, this is exactly who I am. Ben shouted back. The guy who's sick of being blamed for doing what no one else can. More plumbers arrived, surrounding the crystal fortress Ben had created. Inside, he hit the Omnitrix again, transforming into Big Chill. The moth-like alien phased through his own crystal structure, becoming visible above the plumber barricade. Ben Tennyson, a voice boomed over a megaphone. This is your final warning. Big Chill's response was a freezing breath that created an ice barrier between him and the assembled forces. In the confusion, he flew higher, away from the scene. Then he heard Gwen's voice. Ben. Wait. He paused, looking down to see his cousin floating on a platform of mana, rising to meet him. For a moment, he remembered all the missions they'd completed together, all the times they'd had each other's backs. What, Gwen? Come to tell me to trust the system, too? Her expression was pained. No. I know you didn't cause that explosion. But this, what you're doing now, this is exactly why they're afraid. They should be afraid, Big Chill's whispered voice carried on the wind. Listen to yourself. Gwen reached out toward him. The Ben I know doesn't talk like that. The Ben you knew just had his life torn apart by the people he trusted most. Big Chill's wings spread wider. Including you. I'm on your side. Gwen protested. But I can't help if you run. Big Chill drifted back slightly. You already chose sides when you stood with them. When you attacked me. I was trying to stop you from making a mistake. The mistake was thinking any of you had my back. Big Chill's voice grew colder. Goodbye, Gwen. He turned intangible as she flung a mana lasso toward him. It passed through his ghostly form, and with a beat of his massive wings, he disappeared into the night sky. Ben flew for hours, switching between alien forms as the Omnitrix timed out. From Big Chill to Stinkfly, then to Jet Ray when that form expired. His mind raced faster than his body, replaying the betrayal over and over. The accusations. The demand to surrender the Omnitrix. Max's words, trust the system. Eventually, he landed in an abandoned quarry miles from Bellwood, transforming back to human as exhaustion overtook him. The Omnitrix blinked red, needing time to recharge after multiple transformations. Ben slumped against a rock wall, finally alone with his thoughts. 6 years of heroism, hundreds of lives saved, countless threats neutralized. And in return, they tried to take the watch. They labeled him dangerous. His own family stood against him. His phone buzzed in his pocket. 27 missed calls. 18 from Grandpa Max. 5 from Gwen. The rest from his parents. A flood of text messages he couldn't bear to read. Then a new message appeared, meet me at the old factory. I can help. K. Ben frowned, trying to think who it might be. The Omnitrix was still recharging, leaving him vulnerable. It could be a trap. But what choice did he have? The plumbers would be hunting him now. He needed allies, or at least a place to regroup. With a resigned sigh, he pocketed his phone and started walking toward the abandoned factory district on the outskirts of town. The factory loomed against the night sky, windows broken and walls covered in graffiti. Ben approached cautiously, keeping to the shadows. The Omnitrix had recharged enough for one transformation if needed, but he hoped to save it. "Took you long enough, Tennyson." The voice came from behind him. Ben whirled around, hand hovering over the watch. A figure stepped from the shadows, hands raised in mock surrender. "Kevin," Ben said incredulously. Kevin Levin grinned, looking much the same as when Ben had last seen him, black hair, dark clothes, and that perpetual smirk. "In the flesh. Heard you had a falling out with the badge-wearing Boy Scouts." "How did you know about that?" Ben asked suspiciously. Kevin tapped his phone. "It's all over the extranet. Hero Ben 10 goes rogue, attacks plumbers. You're famous for a whole new reason now." Ben groaned. "Great. Just what I needed." "Actually," Kevin said, leaning against a rusted support beam, "it might be exactly what you need." "What are you talking about?" "Think about it, Tennyson. They turned on you. After everything you did, they still didn't trust you. Sound familiar?" Kevin's expression darkened momentarily. "Welcome to my world." Ben crossed his arms. "I'm nothing like you. No. You just attacked the authorities, went on the run, and now you're hiding out with a known criminal." Kevin's smirk returned. "Seems pretty similar from where I'm standing." "I didn't have a choice." "Exactly." Kevin pushed off from the beam and approached Ben. "That's what you never understood before. Sometimes the choice gets made for you." Ben wanted to argue, but Kevin's words hit uncomfortably close to home. Hadn't the plumbers just forced his hand? Hadn't Max's betrayal left him no alternative? "Why did you contact me?" Ben asked finally. "Because I've been where you are." Kevin gestured around the abandoned factory. "And out here, on the wrong side of the law. You need friends who know the territory." "Friends?" Ben raised an eyebrow. "Last I checked, we weren't exactly buddies." Kevin shrugged. "Things change. People change. You're living proof of that right now." Before Ben could respond, a noise outside caught their attention. Headlights swept across the factory windows as vehicles pulled up. "Plumbers," Kevin hissed. "They tracked your phone." Ben cursed, pulling out his phone and seeing the GPS was active. "Rookie mistake. Got a plan?" Kevin asked, already moving toward a back exit. The Omnitrix glowed green, fully recharged. Ben's expression hardened. "Yeah. I'm done running." He twisted the dial and slammed it down. Green light flashed, and where Ben had stood, a crystalline humanoid appeared, but not Diamond Head. This was Chromastone, his body pulsing with rainbow energy. "Stay back," Ben told Kevin. "This might get messy." Plumber agents burst through the factory doors, weapons raised. They hesitated when they saw Chromastone standing calmly in the center of the room. "Ben Tennyson," the lead agent called. "Power down the Omnitrix and come with us." Chromastone's single eye narrowed. "Not happening. We have authorization to use force if necessary." "So do I." The plumbers opened fire. Energy beams struck Chromastone from all directions, exactly as Ben had planned. His crystalline body absorbed the energy, glowing brighter with each hit. "Thanks for the power-up," Ben called, his voice resonating strangely. Then he released the stored energy in a devastating rainbow blast that knocked the plumbers off their feet and shorted out their weapons. More agents poured in. Ben continued absorbing and redirecting their attacks, careful to modulate the energy to stun rather than seriously injure. He might be angry, but he wasn't a killer. From the corner of his eye, he saw Kevin absorb the metal from a support beam, his body transforming into living steel. Then Kevin was beside him, deflecting blaster fire and knocking plumbers aside. Just like old times, Kevin grunted as they fought back to back. "We never fought on the same side," Chromastone reminded him. Kevin laughed. "First time for everything." The battle was brief but intense. The plumbers, unprepared for the combination of Chromastone's energy absorption and Kevin's metal form, soon retreated to regroup. Ben knew they'd be back with specialized equipment. "We need to move," he said, reverting to human form as the Omnitrix timed out. Kevin's skin returned to normal. "I've got wheels outside. Unless you'd rather fly. The watch needs to recharge." Ben glanced at the retreating plumber vehicles. "And they'll be tracking all my alien forms now. Then it's road trip time." Kevin led the way to a sleek green muscle car parked behind the factory. "Hop in. I know a place they won't find us." Ben hesitated, one foot in the passenger door. Was he really doing this? Fleeing with Kevin Levin, fighting plumbers, becoming what he'd spent years fighting against. As if reading his thoughts, Kevin said, "Sometimes the heroes are the bad guys, Tennyson. You just never stuck around long enough to hear the villain's side of the story." Ben slid into the seat and slammed the door. "Drive." Kevin gunned the engine, and they sped away from the factory, leaving behind the last remnants of Ben's heroic life. They drove for hours, staying off main roads and avoiding checkpoints. Kevin seemed to know every back road and hidden track, navigating with the confidence of someone used to staying under the radar. "How long have you been planning this?" Ben asked eventually. Kevin kept his eyes on the road. "Planning what?" "This. Reaching out to me. Having an escape route ready." "I didn't plan it," Kevin said. "But I've been watching you for a while. Waiting. For what?" "For you to see what I saw years ago. That they'll never accept people like us." Kevin glanced at the Omnitrix. "People with real power." Ben frowned. "I'm not power-hungry like you were." "No. Then why keep the watch when they asked for it back?" Kevin's question hung in the air. "Face it, Ben. That thing is part of you now. Giving it up would be like cutting off your arm." Ben couldn't argue with that. The Omnitrix had been with him for so long, through so much. It wasn't just a device, it was his identity. "Where are we going?" he asked instead of responding. "Undertown. The real Undertown, not the tourist-friendly parts you've seen." Ben had visited the alien underground community beneath Bellwood before, but always as a hero, always in officially sanctioned areas. The deeper regions were lawless, controlled by various factions and criminal enterprises. "Why there?" Kevin smirked. "Because it's the last place the plumbers will look for their golden boy. And because you need to see how the other half lives." They arrived at dawn, entering Undertown through a hidden entrance in an abandoned subway tunnel. Kevin parked the car in a concealed garage and led Ben through winding passages that grew increasingly alien in architecture. The Undertown Ben knew was vibrant but orderly, alien tourists and immigrants living alongside humans in a controlled environment. This deeper section was different. Structures defied Earth physics, tech from a dozen worlds hummed and pulsed, and species Ben had never encountered moved through the shadows. "Welcome to the real alien underground," Kevin said, gesturing around. "No plumber jurisdiction, no human laws. Just power and whoever can wield it." "It's chaos," Ben murmured. "It's freedom," Kevin countered. "Something you might appreciate now." They made their way to a structure that looked like a cross between a bar and a fortress. Inside, aliens of all descriptions gathered, some recognizable to Ben, others completely foreign. The room went quiet as they entered, dozens of eyes turning to stare. "Is that," one alien began. "Ben 10, another finished," voice hushed. Kevin stepped forward. He's with me. Anyone has a problem with that, they can take it up with me personally. No one challenged them, but the tension remained palpable as Kevin led Ben to a back room. Inside, a group of aliens and humans were gathered around a holographic display showing what appeared to be shipping routes. Levin, a reptilian alien, acknowledged. "You're interrupting business." "Got something more interesting," Kevin replied, pushing Ben forward. "The famous Ben Tennyson. Currently plumber enemy number 1. The alien's vertical pupils widened. "The rumors are true, then." "What rumors?" Ben asked. "That the hero has fallen." The alien circled Ben, examining him with interest. "The question is, what does that mean for us?" "It means," Kevin interjected, "that the power balance just shifted. Ben here has the most advanced weapon in the galaxy strapped to his wrist, and the plumbers just lost control of it." Ben shot Kevin an annoyed look. "I'm not a weapon." "No," the alien agreed. "You're potentially much more valuable. If you're truly no longer aligned with the plumbers." "They tried to take the Omnitrix," Ben said flatly. "They called me a threat." The alien's mouth stretched in what might have been a smile. "Then perhaps we have common interests." "I didn't come here to join a criminal gang," Ben protested. Kevin laughed. "What did you think running from the law meant, Tennyson? You're a criminal now, whether you like it or not." Before Ben could respond, alarms blared throughout the complex. The reptilian alien hissed and activated a monitor, showing plumber forces entering the outer regions of Undertown. "They found us already?" Ben asked, surprised. "Not you specifically," the alien said. "This is a raid. They do this periodically to remind us of their reach." Kevin grabbed Ben's arm. "Time to earn your keep, Tennyson. Help us push them back, and you'll have allies in Undertown. Don't, and you're on your own." Ben hesitated. Fighting alongside criminals against plumbers, the very organization his grandfather had dedicated his life to. It was a line he never thought he'd cross. But then he remembered the betrayal. The accusations. The attempt to take the Omnitrix by force. "Fine," he said, activating the watch. "But we do this my way. No casualties." He transformed into Swampfire, plant matter replacing human flesh. "Let's show the plumbers they're not welcome here." The next hours were a blur of conflict. Ben led the Undertown defenders against the plumber raid, using his alien strategically. Swampfire created barriers of vines to block their advance. When the Omnitrix timed out, he switched to Echo Echo, using sonic attacks to disable plumber tech without harming the agents. Through it all, he was careful to avoid directly fighting any plumbers he recognized, especially those who had served with Grandpa Max. This wasn't about hurting people, it was about drawing a line. Kevin fought alongside him, surprisingly disciplined, following Ben's non-lethal approach without complaint. The criminal elements of Undertown were less restrained, but Ben's presence tempered their violence. Finally, the plumbers retreated, outmaneuvered and overwhelmed by the combined defense. As the last agents withdrew, Ben transformed back to human, exhausted but uninjured. The reptilian alien approached, respect evident in its posture. "It seems the rumors undersold you, Ben Tennyson. You fought well, and strategically." "I told you, no casualties," Ben said firmly. "And none occurred." Impressive restraint. The alien extended a clawed hand. "I am Slazer, leader of the Void Collective. And you have earned our gratitude." Ben hesitated, then shook the offered hand. "I'm not joining your collective." "Perhaps not today," Slazer replied. "But you will need allies. The plumbers will not stop hunting you, especially now that you have openly opposed them." Kevin clapped a hand on Ben's shoulder. "Face it, Tennyson. You just picked a side." Had he? Ben looked around at the aliens and humans of Undertown, outcasts, criminals, refugees. People who lived outside the system he'd once defended. People the plumbers controlled rather than protected. I picked my own side, Ben corrected. And right now, it happens to align with yours. Slazer seemed amused. A fine distinction. Nevertheless, you are welcome here. Kevin will show you to quarters where you can rest. As they walked away, Kevin smirked. Not bad for your first day as a bad guy, Tennyson. I'm not a bad guy, Ben muttered. No. What would you call someone who just fought against the space cops? Ben had no answer for that. The quarters Kevin led him to were sparse but private, a small room with alien furnishings and a secure door. Ben collapsed onto what served as a bed, the events of the past 24 hours crashing down on him. Get some rest, Kevin advised. Tomorrow, we figure out our next move. Our? Ben questioned, raising an eyebrow. Kevin shrugged. You're not the only one who sees an opportunity here. The Omnitrix gives you power, but I know how things work in the shadows. We could make a good team. Like you and I have such a great history of teamwork, Ben scoffed. People change. Kevin headed for the door. Even you, apparently. After Kevin left, Ben finally checked his phone. Dozens more messages. Pleas from his parents to come home. Assurances from Max that they could work things out. Gwen alternating between anger and concern. One message caught his eye, sent just minutes ago from Gwen. They're calling you a terrorist now, Ben. Whatever you did in Undertown crossed a line. Please stop before this gets worse. Terrorist. The word stung more than he expected. Was that how they saw him now? How Gwen saw him? Ben turned off the phone and tossed it aside. They'd made their choice, and he'd made his. There was no going back now. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of running and fighting. When Ben woke, it took him a moment to remember where he was, and why. The reality of his situation settled over him like a weight. He was a fugitive. An outlaw. Possibly even a terrorist in the eyes of the authorities. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Kevin entered without waiting for a response, carrying what looked like alien food and clothing. Rise and shine, Tennyson. Big day ahead. Ben sat up groggily. What's happening? Meeting with some people who are very interested in your career change. Kevin tossed the clothes at him. Might want to ditch the hero look. Green jacket screams arrest me around here. The new clothes were darker, made of some material Ben didn't recognize that seemed to absorb light. Black pants, charcoal shirt, and a deep blue jacket with an unfamiliar insignia on the sleeve. What's this symbol? Ben asked, examining the jacket. Shows you're under Void Collective Protection, Kevin explained. Wear it if you don't want to get jumped by every lowlife. Thinking they can score the Omnitrix. Ben changed reluctantly, feeling strange in the new outfit. It was like stepping into someone else's life, which, he supposed, he had. So who are we meeting? He asked as they left the room. Kevin's expression grew serious. Ever wonder where villains get their tech? The meeting took place in what appeared to be an underground market, but unlike any market Ben had seen before. Stalls displayed technology from across the galaxy, weapons, shields, transportation devices, and things Ben couldn't even identify. Most of this stuff is illegal on Earth, Ben noted. Most of this stuff is illegal everywhere, Kevin corrected. That's the point. They approached a stall operated by a blue-skinned alien with 4 arms. The alien's eyes widened upon seeing Ben, all 4 hands reaching for hidden weapons. Relax, Basics, Kevin said quickly. He's not here as a hero. The Tennyson boy. Basics' voice was skeptical. I find that hard to believe. Ben stepped forward. Believe it. Things have changed. Basics studied him, then laughed, a gurgling sound that made Ben wince. So they have. The famous Ben 10, shopping at my humble establishment. What a delightful turn of events. Kevin leaned on the counter. We're looking for something special. Omnitrix compatible. Ben gave Kevin a sharp look. I didn't agree to modify the watch. Not modify, Kevin said patiently. Enhance. There's a difference. Basix's interest was clearly piqued. I might have something. He disappeared into a back room, returning with a small device that pulsed with blue energy. Galvan Tech, very rare. Enhances the energy efficiency of transformation matrices. In English? Ben asked. It'll let you stay alien longer, Kevin translated. And possibly unlock combinations the watch wouldn't normally allow. Ben examined the device warily. What's the catch? No catch, Basix assured him, other than the exorbitant price. We'll take it, Kevin said immediately. Hold on, Ben interjected. We can't just, Kevin pulled him aside. Listen, Tennyson. You need every advantage right now. The plumbers will be coming with specialized countermeasures for each of your aliens. This could give you an edge they won't expect. Ben glanced at the device, then at the Omnitrix. Kevin had a point. If he was going to survive as a fugitive, he needed every advantage. And wasn't that what the plumbers feared? That he would use the Omnitrix to its full potential? Fine, he conceded. But I want to know exactly what it does before I connect it to the watch. The transaction completed, they continued through the market. Ben couldn't help noticing how differently people reacted to him now. Where once there would have been fear or hostility, now there was cautious respect. Word of his confrontation with the plumbers had spread. Getting comfortable yet? Kevin asked, noticing Ben's observations. It's weird, Ben admitted. I'm used to people either cheering or running. Get used to this instead. Respect based on power, not a badge. Kevin nodded to a group of aliens who had given them a wide berth. They don't know if you're hero or villain anymore. All they know is you've got the most powerful weapon in the galaxy, and you're not afraid to use it. Is that what this is about for you? Power? Kevin considered the question. It used to be. Now it's about freedom. The power is just how you keep it. As they turned a corner, Ben stopped short. Ahead, posted on a digital board, was his face, alongside a reward notice. Wanted, Ben Tennyson. Extremely dangerous. Approach with caution. Congratulations, Kevin said, following his gaze. You're officially on the most wanted list. Right up there with me. The reality of his situation hit Ben again. There was no going back from this. No easy reconciliation, no slap on the wrist. He had become what he'd spent years fighting against. Or had he? Ben looked around at the underground market. Yes, there were weapons and dangerous tech. Yes, there were criminals and outlaws. But there were also families, refugees, people just trying to survive outside a system that had rejected them. I need to talk to Grandpa Max, Ben said suddenly. Kevin stared at him. Are you insane? He's the one who tried to take the watch. I need to hear his side, Ben insisted. Before this goes any further. His side? Kevin laughed incredulously. His side is plastered all over that wanted poster. But Ben was already walking away, heading back toward their quarters. Kevin followed, cursing under his breath. This is suicide, Tennyson. They'll arrest you the moment you show your face. I'm not showing my face, Ben replied, activating the Omnitrix. I'm going to watch from a distance. I need to know if there's any chance to fix this. Kevin grabbed his arm. There's nothing to fix. You chose your path when you fought the plumbers. Accept it. Ben shook him off. I didn't choose anything. I reacted. Now I need to decide what happens next. Before Kevin could protest further, Ben transformed into Ghost Freak and phased through the ceiling, vanishing from sight. Finding Max wasn't difficult. The rust bucket was parked near the plumber base, Max's predictable response to a crisis: stay close to operations. Ben, invisible and intangible, hovered near the RV's windows, watching his grandfather inside. Max looked haggard, older than Ben had ever seen him. He sat at the small table, surrounded by reports and a communications device that periodically crackled with updates from plumber teams. Gwen entered the RV, looking equally exhausted. "Any word?" Max shook his head. "Nothing since the Undertown incident." "I can't believe he'd fight against plumbers," Gwen said, sitting opposite Max. "This isn't Ben." "I'm not so sure anymore," Max replied, his voice heavy. "The Omnitrix may be affecting him more than we realized." "So you believe the plumber report? That he's dangerous?" Max was silent for a long moment. "I believe Ben is making choices I don't understand. Choices that are putting people at risk." "He thinks we betrayed him," Gwen argued. "You saw his face when they tried to take the watch." "The Omnitrix was never meant to be permanent," Max said firmly. "Azimuth designed it as a tool for diplomacy, not a weapon for a human teenager." "Ben's not just any teenager," Gwen reminded him. "He's saved the world more times than we can count. And now he's fighting alongside criminals." Max's expression hardened. "I love my grandson, but I can't ignore what he's becoming." Ben had heard enough. He phased through the wall and flew to a secluded spot before transforming back to human form. His mind raced. Max truly believed he was dangerous, that the watch was corrupting him. Was it? Ben looked down at the Omnitrix. Had it changed him over the years? Made him more reckless, more confident, more willing to use its power? Before he could pursue that uncomfortable line of thought, his phone vibrated. A message from Kevin: "Plumbers raiding Undertown again. Full force. They're looking for you." Ben's decision crystallized. Max had made his choice. Now Ben would make his. He transformed into XLR-8 and raced back toward Undertown, determination hardening with each step. If the plumbers wanted to brand him a villain, then perhaps it was time to show them what a true villain with the Omnitrix could do. The scene in Undertown was chaos. Plumber forces had penetrated deep into the territory, using specialized equipment to counteract the various alien defenses. They moved with precision, clearly targeting locations associated with the Void Collective. Ben arrived to find Kevin and Slazer coordinating a defense that was rapidly failing. Plumber tech had improved since the last raid, they were prepared this time. "About time you showed up," Kevin shouted as XLR-8 skidded to a halt beside him. "They came in force, looking for you." "I noticed." Ben surveyed the situation. The plumbers had civilians cornered, were confiscating technology, and seemed intent on dismantling the entire underground community. "This isn't just about me." "No," Slazer confirmed. "They seek to make an example. Your defection has embarrassed them." Ben's expression darkened behind XLR-8's visor. "Then let's embarrass them some more." He hit the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, transforming into 4 arms. The 4-armed alien strength would be useful in the confined spaces. "New plan," Ben announced. "We push them back, all the way to the surface." "That's suicide," Slazer objected. "They have superior numbers and equipment. Numbers won't matter if they can't fight effectively." Ben cracked his knuckles, all 16 of them. "Kevin, remember Vulcanus's mining operation?" Kevin grinned, catching on. "Structural collapse." "Nice thinking, Tennyson." Ben turned to Slazer. "Evacuate everyone through the east tunnels. We're going to bring down the main access shafts, trap the plumbers between levels. That will cut off major sections of Undertown," Slazer warned. "Temporarily," Ben agreed. "But it will stop this raid and give us time to regroup." Slazer considered for a moment, then nodded. "Do it." Ben and Kevin moved quickly, fighting their way toward the main support structures that held up the access tunnels between undertown levels. Along the way, they encountered heavy plumber resistance. "Tennyson." A familiar voice called out. "Stand down." Ben turned to see Magister Patelladay leading a squad of plumbers. The fish-like alien looked genuinely pained. "This isn't what Max would want," Patelladay said. "Come in peacefully, and we can work this out." Four Arms laughed bitterly. "I just talked to Grandpa Max. He thinks the watch is corrupting me. That I'm dangerous. Because of choices like this." Patelladay gestured around at the destruction. "Fighting alongside criminals, attacking plumbers, this isn't you, Ben." "Maybe it is now," Ben replied, slamming all four fists into the ground and creating a shockwave that knocked the plumbers off their feet. He and Kevin continued their advance, Ben switching between alien forms as needed. For Arms for strength, Big Chill to phase through barriers, Heat Blast to create diversions with fire. They reached the first support structure, a massive column integrated with alien tech that helped maintain the cavern system. "You sure about this?" Kevin asked, absorbing the metal from a nearby pipe. "Once we do this, there's no going back. You're declaring war on the plumbers." Ben, now Diamondhead, created a crystal barrier to hold back approaching forces. "They declared war when they raided homes looking for me." With grim determination, they began systematically damaging the support structures, not enough to cause catastrophic collapse, but enough to make the tunnels impassable. Ben calculated each strike carefully, ensuring civilians had time to evacuate while maximizing the disruption to plumber operations. As they finished with the final support, an energy blast struck Ben from behind, knocking him forward. He turned to see Gwen standing there, hands glowing with mana. "Stop this right now, Ben," she demanded, voice cracking with emotion. Diamondhead's crystalline features hardened. "You're too late, Gwen." "It's never too late," she pleaded. "Whatever you're planning, whatever you think this accomplishes, it only makes things worse." Ben looked at his cousin, the person who had been beside him from the beginning of his hero journey. For a moment, doubt crept in. Was he making a terrible mistake? Then he remembered Max's words, "I can't ignore what he's becoming." "You should leave," Ben said coldly. "The tunnels are coming down." "I'm not leaving without you," Gwen insisted, stepping closer. Kevin moved between them. "He made his choice, Gwen. Maybe it's time you made yours." Gwen's eyes widened, flickering between Kevin and Ben. "Is that what this is? Him or me?" "No one's asking you to choose," Ben said. "I'm telling you to get out before you get hurt." "You're my family, Ben," Gwen said, tears forming. "Please don't do this." The support structure behind them groaned as the damage spread. Time was running out. "Family doesn't try to take the Omnitrix," Ben replied. "Family trusts me to use it right." Before Gwen could respond, the tunnel began to collapse. Ben transformed into Cannonbolt, rolling forward to knock Gwen clear of the falling debris, his last act of protection for his cousin. "Go," he shouted as he rolled back toward Kevin. The last thing he saw was Gwen's face, tears streaming down her cheeks, as a wall of rubble separated them. Silence fell as the dust settled. Ben transformed back to human, staring at the wall of debris that now cut off the main plumber access to Undertown. "Well," Kevin said, brushing dust from his clothes, "that's one way to burn a bridge." Ben didn't respond. The reality of what he'd just done was sinking in. He had actively fought against the plumbers, against Gwen. There was no explaining this away, no claiming self-defense or misunderstanding. He had chosen his side. "Come on," Kevin said, noticing Ben's expression. "We need to regroup with Slazer before the plumbers find another way in." They made their way through the damaged tunnels to an emergency command center Slazer had established. The reptilian alien was coordinating evacuation efforts, ensuring civilians reached safe areas. "The plumbers are regrouping on the surface," Slazer reported as they entered. But your strategy worked. We have time to reorganize. Ben nodded absently, his mind still processing the confrontation with Gwen. Tennyson needs a moment, Kevin told Slazer. Today was his first time fighting family. Slazer's expression showed understanding. A difficult threshold to cross. Take whatever time you need, Ben Tennyson. But know that your actions today have earned the loyalty of Undertown's people. Left alone with Kevin, Ben finally spoke. I saved her. What? Gwen. I made sure she was clear of the collapse. Ben looked at his hands. Even now, I couldn't let her get hurt. Kevin's expression softened slightly. That doesn't make you weak, Tennyson. It means you've still got lines you won't cross. But I crossed plenty of others today. Welcome to the complicated life of being the bad guy, Kevin said, not unkindly. It's never as simple as heroes pretend it is. Ben looked up, a new resolve forming. If I'm going to do this, really do this, then it has to be on my terms. Not the plumber's definition of a villain, not Undertown's, not even yours. What does that mean? Kevin asked cautiously. It means, Ben said, standing straighter, that it's time I stopped reacting and started acting. The plumbers think the Omnitrix makes me dangerous. Let's show them what dangerous really looks like. Kevin studied him for a long moment, then smiled. Now you're talking like a proper villain. Tennyson. Not a villain, Ben corrected. Something new. Something they won't see coming. In that moment, standing in the ruins of Undertown with Kevin Levin at his side, Ben Tennyson completed his transformation. Not into a hero gone bad, but into something more complex, a power player with his own agenda, his own code, and the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. The plumbers had created their own worst enemy. And he was just getting started. Chapter 2, New Alliances. 2 weeks after the Undertown collapse, Ben stood on a rooftop overlooking Bellwood. The city lights sparkled below, a view he'd seen countless times as a hero. Funny how different it looked now that he was on the other side. Targets on the move, Kevin's voice came through the comm in his ear. Armored truck, for plumber escorts, heading east on Madison. Ben checked the Omnitrix, cycling through alien options. Remember the plan. In and out, no casualties. Yes, boss, Kevin replied, the smirk evident in his voice. Ben still wasn't used to that, the way Kevin deferred to him now. The way everyone did. 2 weeks as a fugitive had changed things faster than he'd anticipated. The power vacuum left by the Undertown collapse had created opportunities, and Ben hadn't hesitated to seize them. Slazer's team in position? Ben asked, eyes tracking the convoy approaching on the street below. Ready to provide the distraction. Just give the word. Ben took a deep breath. This would be his most public move since going rogue. No hiding in Undertown, no skirmishes in the shadows. A direct hit against plumber operations in broad daylight. Now. He slammed down on the Omnitrix. Green light flashed, and Big Chill's spectral form took flight, wings spreading wide as he dove toward the street. 3 blocks ahead, an explosion rocked the convoy's path. Nothing lethal, just smoke and noise, courtesy of Slazer's team. The armored truck screeched to a halt as plumber agents emerged, weapons drawn. Perfect. Ben swooped down, intangible, passing through the truck's armored exterior like it was fog. Inside, the driver reached for an alarm, but Ben's freezing breath encased his hand in ice inches from the button. I wouldn't, Big Chill whispered, voice eerie in the confined space. Tennyson, the driver growled, recognition flashing in his eyes. You're making a big mistake. That's what everyone keeps telling me. Ben phased through the divider into the truck's cargo hold, where cases of specialized technology lay secured. He grabbed the one Kevin had identified, Galvan Tech, supposedly. Yet I keep succeeding. Outside, the diversion was in full swing. Slazer's team had the plumbers pinned down with non-lethal energy weapons, creating enough chaos for Kevin to slip under the truck and begin cutting through the floor with an absorbed metal blade. Ben phased the case through the bottom of the truck, where Kevin grabbed it and rolled clear. Then Ben froze the truck's engine block solid before phasing through the floor himself. Got it. Kevin confirmed, already running toward their escape vehicle. Big Chill became solid long enough to be seen by the plumbers, drawing their fire as Kevin escaped with the prize. Ben dodged energy blasts, his ghostly form making him nearly impossible to hit. "It's Tennyson," one of the plumbers shouted. "Call for backup." "Tell Grandpa Max I said hi," Ben called, before going intangible again and disappearing through a building wall. By the time plumber reinforcements arrived, Ben and Kevin were miles away, the stolen tech secure in the trunk of Kevin's car. "That was almost too easy," Kevin said, gunning the engine as they headed for the edge of town. "Plumbers are getting sloppy." "Or they're setting a trap," Ben replied, back in human form and studying the device they'd stolen. "We should assume they're tracking this." "Already on it." Kevin tapped a device attached to the dashboard. "Signal scrambler. Nothing gets in or out." Ben leaned back in his seat, allowing himself a moment of satisfaction. 3 heists in 2 weeks, each one targeting plumber technology that could be useful to their growing operation. This latest score, a Galvan communications array, would allow them to monitor plumber frequencies without detection. "So," Kevin said, breaking the silence, "how does it feel? Being the one the plumbers warn each other about?" Ben looked out the window at the passing landscape. "Weird. But not as weird as I thought it would be." "Told you it wasn't that different," Kevin replied. "The adrenaline rush, the planning, the score, it's all the same. Just different targets." Ben wasn't so sure. As a hero, the rush came from saving people, not stealing tech. But he couldn't deny the satisfaction of outmaneuvering the plumbers, the organization that had turned on him. "Head to the secondary location," Ben instructed as they approached the city limits. "I don't want to risk leading them back to base." Kevin nodded, taking a sharp turn down a side road. "You know, for someone who spent years chasing bad guys, you've got a natural talent for this." "I spent years studying how criminals operate," Ben pointed out. "I know the playbook." "And you're rewriting it." Kevin grinned. "The plumbers have no idea how to handle a rogue Ben 10. You're their worst nightmare." That thought should have bothered Ben more than it did. They arrived at an abandoned warehouse outside Bellwood, one of several staging areas they'd established since the Undertown incident. Slazer waited inside with his team, already setting up equipment to analyze their prize. "The diversion worked perfectly," Slazer reported. "No casualties, and the plumbers remain confused about our true objective." "And our other operation?" Ben asked. "In progress. The shipment arrives tonight at the docks. We'll have the weapons before dawn." Ben nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. 2 weeks ago, he'd been running from the plumbers with no plan beyond survival. Now he was coordinating multiple operations, building a network, establishing himself as a power player. "Don't get too comfortable," Kevin warned, noticing Ben's expression. "Word's spreading about what we're doing. Won't be long before the big fish take notice." "Let them," Ben replied with confidence he didn't entirely feel. "We can handle whatever comes." He had no idea how wrong he was. The first challenge to Ben's growing operation came not from the plumbers, but from the criminal underworld itself. 3 days after the convoy heist, Ben and Kevin were meeting with a potential supplier in an abandoned missile silo they'd converted into a base of operations. "The terms are non-negotiable," the supplier, a squid-like alien named Krylox, insisted. 50% up front, 50 upon delivery. Ben shook his head. 25 up front. The rest when we verify the tech works as advertised. Krylox's tentacles twitched irritably. "You question my integrity, Tennyson?" "I question everyone's integrity," Ben replied evenly. It's why I'm still alive. The alien's compound eyes narrowed. You've been in this business for what, a few weeks? You don't dictate terms to someone with my connections. Kevin, leaning against a wall nearby, spoke up. Those connections won't mean much if word gets out you tried to scam Ben 10. Before Krylox could respond, alarms blared throughout the base. Security monitors flashed red as perimeter alerts triggered simultaneously across multiple sectors. We're under attack, Kevin said, immediately moving to a console. Ben was already activating the Omnitrix. Who is it? Plumbers. The answer came in the form of an explosion that rocked the entire structure. Through the dust and debris emerged a familiar figure, 8 feet tall, armor gleaming, face tentacled and scarred. Vilgax, Ben breathed, momentarily frozen in shock. The Chimera Sway generous warlord stepped forward, red eyes fixed on Ben. Tennyson. I heard rumors of your career change. Ben slammed down on the Omnitrix, transforming into Humongosaur. The dinosaur-like alien grew to match Vilgax's height, muscles tensing for battle. Here for a rematch? I've beaten you before, I'll do it again. Vilgax raised a hand. I'm not here to fight you, child. That gave Ben pause. In all their years of conflict, Vilgax had never sought anything but the Omnitrix and Ben's destruction. Then why blast your way into my base? To evaluate. Vilgax's gaze swept the room, taking in Kevin, Slazer's people, and the cowering Krylox. I wanted to see for myself if the great Ben Tennyson had truly abandoned his heroic principles. Humongosaur's eyes narrowed. And? I'm intrigued. Vilgax stepped closer, seemingly unconcerned by the weapons trained on him from all directions. The boy who thwarted my plans countless times, now operating outside the law. The possibilities are fascinating. Get to the point, Ben growled, maintaining his defensive stance. An alliance, Vilgax stated simply. Your new operation has potential, but lacks resources and experience. I can provide both. Kevin laughed incredulously. You want to team up? After trying to kill Ben for years? Business is business, Vilgax replied coldly. Tennyson possesses the Omnitrix. I have fleets, technology, and influence across 20 systems. Together, we could be formidable. Ben hadn't expected this. Fighting Vilgax, that he was prepared for. But an offer of alliance. From his oldest enemy. Why should I trust you? He asked, not lowering his guard. Trust is irrelevant, Vilgax said. Mutual benefit is what matters. And right now, Tennyson, you need allies with real power. The plumbers are mobilizing against you on a scale you cannot imagine. As if on cue, Kevin called from the monitor station, he's right. I'm picking up massive plumber movements throughout the sector. Something big's happening. Ben transformed back to human form, mind racing. Vilgax was dangerous, unpredictable, and had tried to kill him more times than he could count. But the warlord also commanded resources that dwarfed anything Ben could access on his own. What exactly are you proposing? Ben asked cautiously. Vilgax seemed pleased by the question. A combined operation against a mutual enemy. The plumbers have established a new weapons facility in the Kepler sector, technology specifically designed to counter your alien forms. And you want to destroy it, Ben surmised. We want to destroy it, Vilgax corrected. A demonstration of our new partnership that benefits us both. Ben exchanged a look with Kevin, who gave a subtle shrug that said, your call. Slazer stepped forward, voicing what everyone was thinking. This could be a trap. Of course it could be a trap, Ben agreed. But if he's telling the truth about the weapons facility. I am, Vilgax interjected. See for yourself. He activated a holographic display showing detailed schematics of an orbital platform. This facility goes operational in 48 hours. Once active, the plumbers will have the capability to neutralize the Omnitrix from orbit. Ben studied the schematics, recognizing elements of Galvan design. It looked legitimate, and terrifying in its implications. A weapon that could target the Omnitrix specifically would render him powerless. Verification, he asked Kevin. Kevin was already hacking into plumber communications. Chatter confirmed something big in the Kepler sector. Lots of encrypted transmissions about containing the Tennyson threat. Ben's expression hardened. This was the plumber's answer to his defection, not negotiation, not understanding, but a weapon designed to neutralize him permanently. "All right, Vilgax," he said finally. "One operation. We hit this facility together. But this isn't an alliance, it's a temporary arrangement." Vilgax's mouth tentacles twitched in what might have been a smile. "For now." The planning took hours. Despite their history as enemies, Ben had to admit Vilgax brought valuable expertise to the table. The warlord's knowledge of plumber protocols and weaknesses was extensive, and his tactical approach was ruthlessly efficient. "The facility has 3 defensive layers," Vilgax explained, manipulating the holographic display. "Automated turrets, energy shields, and a plumber security force. We must disable them sequentially." Ben studied the layout, identifying vulnerabilities. "The shield generators are here and here. If I can get inside as Ghost Freak, I can sabotage them from within." "Too risky," Vilgax countered. "They'll have phase disruption fields in place. But your upgrade form could interface with their systems remotely." Ben raised an eyebrow. "You've done your homework on my aliens." "Know thy enemy," Vilgax replied. "A principle that serves equally well in alliance." Kevin, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. "This all sounds great, but there's one problem. The facility is in orbit. How exactly are we getting there?" Vilgax's answer came in the form of a ship that decloaked above their base hours later, a sleek, predatory vessel that hummed with advanced technology. "My scout ship," the warlord announced as they gathered outside. "Capable of outrunning any plumber vessel and equipped with cloaking technology beyond their detection abilities." Ben whistled, genuinely impressed. "Nice ride." "Indeed." Vilgax seemed pleased by the appreciation. "It will transport a strike team of 6, you, me, your associate Kevin, and 3 of my elite guards." Kevin examined the ship with professional interest. "Pulsed quantum drive, phase-shifted hull plating, disruptor cannons, this thing's a serious piece of hardware." "The best in my fleet," Vilgax confirmed. "Only fitting for a mission of this importance." As the others prepared equipment for the raid, Ben found himself alone with Vilgax for the first time, a situation that would have meant deadly combat just weeks ago. Now they stood side by side, reviewing tactical displays. "I must admit, Tennyson," Vilgax said, breaking the uncomfortable silence, "I had not anticipated this turn of events." "You were so tediously righteous." Ben's jaw tightened. "I didn't change. The world around me did." An interesting perspective. The hero believes he remains heroic, even as he plans to attack those he once served. "I never served the plumbers," Ben corrected sharply. "I protected people. There's a difference." Vilgax studied him with those unnerving red eyes. "And now? Who do you protect now, Tennyson?" The question hit harder than Ben expected. Who was he protecting? His own interests. The criminals and outcasts of Undertown. Some abstract principle of freedom. "Myself," he answered finally. "And the power to make my own choices." Vilgax's response was unexpected, a deep, rumbling laugh. "Perhaps you are more interesting than I thought, Ben Tennyson. We may yet find common ground beyond our immediate goals." Kevin interrupted before Ben could respond. "We're ready. Ships prepped and the teams assembled. Then we depart immediately," Vilgax declared. "The plumbers must not complete this weapon. The journey to the Kepler sector took less than an hour, thanks to Vilgax's advanced ship. Ben spent the time studying the facility schematics and finalizing their approach. Kevin, meanwhile, had absorbed the metal from part of the ship's interior, armoring himself for the coming fight. Remember, Ben told him as they prepared for arrival, we're only targeting the facility and its systems. No unnecessary casualties. Kevin rolled his eyes. Still holding on to those hero principles, huh? It's not about being a hero, Ben insisted. It's about not being Vilgax. I heard that, the warlord called from the ship's control center. And I would remind you, Tennyson, that restraint can be a liability in our line of work. Ben approached Vilgax at the controls. Our line of work is whatever I decide it is. Clear. To his surprise, Vilgax didn't argue. Your operation, your rules. For now. The ship decelerated as they entered the Kepler sector, cloaking technology engaged to avoid detection. Through the view screen, Ben could see their target, an orbital platform that gleamed silver against the blackness of space, plumber vessels patrolling its perimeter. Scanning defenses, Vilgax announced, manipulating controls. Interesting. They've increased security since my intelligence was gathered. 2 additional patrol ships and enhanced sensor arrays. Problem? Ben asked. A complication, not a problem. Vilgax adjusted their approach vector. We'll need to create a more substantial diversion than planned. Kevin joined them at the viewport. What kind of diversion? Vilgax pointed to a nearby asteroid field. Those. With the right detonation sequence, we can create a debris field that will trigger their automated defense systems. While they're occupied, we slip through in a targeted approach. Ben nodded. Do it. Vilgax launched a series of specialized charges into the asteroid field. Moments later, coordinated explosions shattered dozens of asteroids, creating a cloud of debris that drifted rapidly toward the plumber facility. Alarms must have triggered on the platform, as patrol ships immediately moved to intercept the potential hazard. Now, Vilgax commanded, guiding the ship through a precise trajectory that kept them in the shadow of the debris field. Prepare for boarding. They docked with the facility using an emergency airlock, a forced connection that would trigger alarms, but not before they were already inside. Ben led the way, transforming into XLR-8 for the initial insertion. I'll clear the path to the central control room, he told the others. Kevin, you and Vilgax's guards secure our exit route. Vilgax, you're with me. The warlord nodded, weapon systems in his armor activating with an ominous hum. Let's proceed. XLR-8 moved through the facility at blinding speed, neutralizing plumber agents before they could sound alerts. Ben was careful to use non-lethal tactics, quick strikes to pressure points, momentum-based throws that left opponents winded but uninjured. Vilgax followed in his wake, his expression unreadable as he observed Ben's merciful approach. Your methods are inefficient, the warlord commented after Ben disabled a group of plumbers without serious injury. They're my methods, XLR-8 replied curtly. Deal with it. They reached the central control room with minimal resistance, which immediately struck Ben as suspicious. A facility of this importance should have had heavier security. Something's wrong, he said, transforming back to human form as they secured the room. This was too easy. Vilgax agreed, scanning the systems with obvious concern. These are not the main controls. This is a secondary monitoring station. Ben cursed under his breath. They've changed the layout. The weapon controls must be elsewhere. Or this facility is not what we believed. Vilgax accessed a computer terminal, bypassing security with practiced ease. Let us see what the plumbers are really building here. The screen filled with technical data, schematics, power requirements, operational parameters. Ben's eyes widened as he processed what he was seeing. This isn't a weapon, he realized. It's a containment system. For me. Vilgax nodded grimly. Not to neutralize the Omnitrix, but to contain you once captured. A specialized prison designed to hold every alien form in your arsenal. The implications hit Ben like a physical blow. The plumbers weren't developing a way to destroy the Omnitrix, they were creating a prison where they could keep him forever, powerless despite the watch. We need to destroy it anyway, he decided, anger burning cold in his chest. Whatever their plan, I'm not letting them complete it. Agreed. Vilgax pointed to a schematic. The primary systems are housed here, in the core. We must reach it and overload the power distribution network. Before they could move, Kevin's voice came through their comms. Ben. We've got company. Lots of company. They were waiting for us. Alarms blared throughout the facility. Emergency bulkheads began slamming shut, separating sections of the station. It's a trap, Ben realized. They knew we were coming. Vilgax's eyes narrowed. Impossible. My intelligence was exactly what they wanted you to find, Ben finished. They fed you information, knowing you'd share it with me. The warlord's face contorted with rage. No one manipulates Vilgax. Argue later, Ben said, activating the Omnitrix. We need to move. He transformed into Diamondhead, crystalline body better suited for the combat that would surely follow. New plan. We fight our way to the core, overload it, and escape before this whole place blows. Vilgax nodded, weapon systems charging. Direct. I approve. They fought their way through increasingly heavy resistance, plumber forces converging from all directions. Ben maintained his non-lethal approach, using Diamondhead's crystal powers to trap and incapacitate rather than injure. Vilgax showed no such restraint, his attacks devastating in their efficiency, though he stopped short of lethal force, seemingly in deference to Ben's earlier directive. We're cut off from the ship, Kevin reported through sporadic comm transmissions. Plumbers have locked down all docking bays. Find another way out, Ben instructed. Escape pods, service airlocks, anything. Already on it. But we've got another problem. Guess who's here leading the plumber response? Ben didn't need to guess. Grandpa Max. Bingo. And he's brought backup. Your cousin's with him. The news shouldn't have surprised him, but it still hit hard. Max and Gwen, personally leading the operation to capture him. The family he'd once trusted, now hunting him like a common criminal. Stay away from them if you can, Ben told Kevin. This isn't your fight. Little late for that, Kevin replied, the sound of combat evident in the background. But I'll try not to hurt your relatives too badly. They reached the facility's core, a massive chamber housing energy systems that powered the entire station. Plumber forces had established defensive positions around the critical infrastructure, and standing at the center of their formation were two figures Ben recognized instantly. Ben. Max Tennyson called out, his plumber armor battle-worn but his stance unwavering. Stop this right now. Beside him, Gwen's hands glowed with mana energy, her expression a mixture of determination and sadness. It's over, Ben. Don't make this worse. Diamondhead stepped forward, crystal hands forming into blades. Worse than what? Building a prison specifically designed to hold me forever. Max's expression betrayed nothing. It's a containment facility, yes. Because you've given us no choice. There's always a choice, Ben replied bitterly. You chose to treat me like a weapon to be controlled instead of a person with rights. You chose to steal plumber technology and ally with Vilgax. Max shot back, genuine anger breaking through his professional demeanor. Look at yourself, Ben. Working with the most dangerous being in the galaxy, attacking a plumber facility. These aren't the actions of someone who deserves freedom. The word stung more than Ben wanted to admit. He glanced at Vilgax, momentarily seeing himself through Max's eyes, a rogue wielder of the Omnitrix, allied with a galactic warlord, attacking the organization he once supported. But then he remembered the betrayal that had started it all. The attempt to take the Omnitrix by force. The accusations without evidence. I didn't choose this, Ben said, voice hardening. You pushed me to it. Gwen took a step forward, hands still glowing but posture less aggressive. It's not too late, Ben. Surrender the Omnitrix voluntarily. Show everyone this isn't who you really are. For a fleeting moment, Ben wavered. The plea in Gwen's eyes, the family connection he'd valued his whole life, it pulled at him, made him question the path he'd taken. Then Vilgax spoke, his rumbling voice cutting through Ben's doubt. They seek to manipulate you through sentiment, Tennyson. They failed to take the Omnitrix by force, so now they attempt deception. Stay out of this, Vilgax, Max warned, weapon trained on the warlord. This is family business. Family? Vilgax laughed harshly. The family that betrayed him? The family that builds prisons designed specifically for him? Ben's resolve hardened. He's right. This isn't about family anymore. This is about power, your power versus mine. Ben, please, Gwen tried again, stepping closer despite Max's warning gesture. Think about what you're doing. The people you're hurting. I'm not hurting anyone, Ben countered. I've been careful. No serious injuries, no casualties, even now, fighting against a trap specifically designed to capture me. Max's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of something, pride, perhaps, crossing his features before disappearing. That's why there's still hope for you, Ben. You haven't crossed that final line. And I won't, Ben assured him. But I'm not surrendering, and I'm not giving up the Omnitrix. Not now, not ever. Before anyone could respond, the facility rocked with a massive explosion. Alarms blared with renewed urgency as automated systems announced critical damage to the station's infrastructure. Kevin's voice came through the comm, sounding both smug and urgent. That was me. Found the primary power coupling and gave it a little boost. This whole place is gonna blow in about 10 minutes. Max immediately began issuing evacuation orders to his plumber forces. All personnel to escape. Pods. Move. In the confusion, Ben made his decision. He slammed his crystal fist into the core's control panel, accelerating the overload Kevin had started. It's over, Grandpa. Your prison is finished. And so are you if you don't evacuate, Max replied, genuine concern breaking through his professional demeanor. Ben, whatever's happened between us, I don't want you dead. I know, Ben acknowledged. That's why I'm still alive despite everything. But this ends now. He hit the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, transforming into Jetray. The amphibian alien could survive in space long enough to escape the station. Ben. Gwen called as he prepared to leave. This path you're on, it only ends one way. Jetray paused, looking back at his cousin. Maybe. But it's my path to choose. With that, he blasted through the ceiling, cutting a direct path toward the outer hull. Behind him, he sensed rather than saw Vilgax following, the warlord's armor equipped for space survival. They reached the hull and broke through, emerging into the vacuum of space as the station began breaking apart behind them. Ben spotted Kevin and the surviving members of their strike team already aboard Vilgax's ship, which had disengaged from the doomed facility. Ben and Vilgax reached the ship moments before the station's core went critical. A blinding flash engulfed the area as the facility exploded, debris scattering in all directions. Through the viewport, Ben could see plumber escape pods launching safely away from the blast. Good. Despite everything, he didn't want plumber casualties on his conscience. Especially not Max and Gwen. A successful operation, despite the trap, Vilgax observed as their ship accelerated away from the scene. Your relatives escaped, if that concerns you. It does, Ben admitted, returning to human form. I'm not a killer. A limitation you may need to reconsider in our line of work, Vilgax noted, though without his usual contempt. But your performance was impressive, regardless. Your tactical instincts have improved since our previous encounters. Coming from Vilgax, this was high praise indeed. Ben found himself oddly gratified by the warlord's approval, then immediately troubled by that reaction. Was he actually starting to view Vilgax as an ally? As a mentor? Kevin interrupted his disturbing train of thought. So, what now? The plumbers know we're working together. They'll adapt their tactics. Let them, Ben said with newfound confidence. We're always one step ahead. Indeed, Vilgax agreed. And our next step should be to capitalize on this victory. The destruction of their containment facility will force the plumbers to reallocate resources, creating vulnerabilities we can exploit. Ben considered this. The operation had been successful, yes, but it had also confirmed his worst fears. The plumbers now viewed him as a threat to be contained permanently. There would be no reconciliation, no return to his former life. The realization should have devastated him. Instead, it was strangely liberating. If the bridges were well and truly burned, then he was free to build something new, something entirely his own. I have an idea, he said finally. Something bigger than hitting plumber targets one by one. Both Kevin and Vilgax looked at him with interest. I think it's time we established our own territory, Ben continued. Not just hiding in undertown or abandoned bases. A real power center that both the plumbers and other criminal factions have to respect. Kevin raised an eyebrow. You're talking about controlling territory now? Like a proper crime lord? Not crime, Ben corrected. Freedom. A place where the Omnitrix isn't seen as a weapon to be controlled or feared, but as a tool for protecting a community's independence. Vilgax seemed intrigued by the concept. Ambitious. The plumbers would never tolerate such a direct challenge to their authority. They don't have to tolerate it, Ben replied. They just have to accept they can't stop it. And so, a new phase of Ben's transformation began. Over. The following weeks, he, Kevin, and their growing network of allies began consolidating power in a region the plumbers had long struggled to control, the lawless border zone between Earth and Galvan space known as the Null Void Perimeter. Unlike the Null Void itself, which served as an interdimensional prison, the perimeter was simply difficult to police, a region where spatial anomalies made conventional law enforcement challenging. It had become a haven for smugglers, pirates, and refugees fleeing more restrictive systems. Ben established his base of operations on an asteroid that had been hollowed out by previous occupants, transforming it into a fortified headquarters with technology stolen from plumber facilities and purchased from black market sources. Under his leadership, the once scattered criminal elements of the region began to organize, finding strength in unity against plumber incursions. Vilgax, true to his word, provided resources and expertise, though Ben remained wary of the warlord's ultimate intentions. Their alliance was one of convenience, not trust, a fact both acknowledged without speaking it aloud. Kevin, meanwhile, thrived in his role as Ben's second-in-command. His years of criminal experience proved invaluable as they navigated the complex politics of the underworld. He handled the day-to-day operations while Ben focused on strategy and their expanding influence. 3 months after the destruction of the containment facility, Ben stood on an observation deck overlooking their growing settlement. What had begun as a hideout had evolved into something resembling a small city, ships coming and going, trading posts established, even families settling in areas Ben had designated as civilian zones. Impressive, isn't it? Kevin said, joining him at the viewport. Your own little kingdom. Ben watched as an incoming transport docked, offloading supplies. Not a kingdom. More like, a sanctuary. Call it whatever you want, Kevin shrugged. Bottom line, you've built something from nothing in record time. People are starting to take notice. The plumbers certainly have, Ben noted, gesturing to a tactical display showing plumber patrol patterns carefully skirting their territory. They're containing us rather than confronting us. Smart move on their part, Kevin admitted. After what happened at the facility, they know a direct assault would be costly. Ben nodded, thoughtful. The standoff with the plumbers couldn't last forever, but for now, it provided the breathing room they needed to strengthen their position. As for Vilgax. Any word from our tentacled ally? Ben asked. Left for his home system 2 days ago, Kevin reported. Said something about consolidating resources for the next phase. Whatever that means. It means he's planning something, Ben said, unsurprised. Something he doesn't want us to know about yet. Kevin leaned against the viewport railing. You trust him? About as far as I can throw Humungosaur, Ben replied with a half-smile. But his resources have been useful, and he hasn't tried to stab us in the back. Yet. Speaking of potential backstabbers, Kevin said, suddenly serious, we've got a situation with the Incursians. Their ambassadors demanding a meeting. Ben groaned. The frog-like Incursians were notorious opportunists, always looking to expand their influence through manipulation and conquest. What do they want now? The usual. Protection money disguised as taxation for passage rights through what they claim is their territory. Which just happens to include our supply routes, Ben surmised. Exactly. They're testing you, seeing how you'll respond to pressure. Ben considered their options. The Incursians were powerful, with a substantial fleet and resources that dwarfed Ben's operation. But giving in to their demands would set a dangerous precedent. Set up the meeting, he decided. I'll handle this personally. Kevin looked concerned. You sure that's wise? The Incursians aren't known for diplomatic solutions. Ben's hand moved unconsciously to the Omnitrix. Neither am I. Not anymore. The Incursion ambassador arrived with an entourage of armed guards, a clear intimidation tactic that Ben purposely matched by hosting the meeting in their operations command center, surrounded by his own forces. Ambassador Croax, Ben greeted the Incursion coldly. You requested this meeting. The amphibian alien puffed up importantly. On behalf of Emperor Milius, I bring terms for your continued operation in this sector. Terms? Ben raised an eyebrow. I wasn't aware we needed the Incursians' permission to exist. Croax's throat sac expanded with indignation. This region falls within Incursian-claimed space. All enterprises operating here must pay appropriate tribute to the Empire. Kevin, standing beside Ben, snorted. Funny, I don't see any Incursion patrols keeping the peace around here. That's our job. Military presence is not required for sovereign claim, Croax insisted. Emperor Milius has decreed, Emperor Milius can decree whatever he wants, Ben interrupted. It doesn't make it reality. The ambassador's eyes narrowed. You would defy the Incursion Empire? Even in your fallen state, I expected more wisdom from Ben Tennyson. Let me be clear, Ben said, stepping forward. I haven't fallen. I've evolved. And this territory isn't controlled by the plumbers, the Incursians, or anyone else. It's independent, under my protection. Protection? Croax laughed, a croaking sound that set Ben's teeth on edge. A fugitive with a handful of criminals and outcasts. Against the might of the Incursion fleet. Ben's patience evaporated. He activated the Omnitrix, transforming into Gravitac. The living planetoid's gravitational powers immediately took effect, lifting the ambassador and his guards a few inches off the ground. Let me demonstrate what protection means, Ben said, his voice deeper in this form. With careful control, he increased the gravitational field around the Incursians, making it difficult for them to move or reach their weapons. This is an outrage. Croax sputtered, floating helplessly. An attack on a diplomatic envoy. No, Ben corrected. This is a demonstration. Right now, I'm controlling the gravity in this room. I could crush you all into paste if I wanted to. Fear finally registered in the ambassador's bulbous eyes. You wouldn't. Ben Tennyson doesn't kill. The old Ben might not have, Gravitac replied, increasing the pressure slightly. But you're dealing with the new one now. Ben had no intention of actually harming the Incursians, but they didn't need to know that. Sometimes, the appearance of ruthlessness was as effective as the real thing, a lesson he'd learned from watching Vilgax. Now, he continued, here are my terms. The Incursion Empire will recognize this sector as independent territory. Our ships pass through your claimed space without taxation or interference. In return, we don't expand beyond our current boundaries. Emperor Milius will never agree, Croax began. Ben increased the gravitational pressure just enough to make breathing difficult. He will when you tell him the alternative. When you explain exactly what I'm capable of doing to Incursion interests across 3 systems. He released the gravitational field abruptly, dropping the ambassador and his guards to the floor. Then he transformed back to human form, looking down at the gasping Incursians with cold determination. Take my offer to your emperor, Ben instructed. You have 48 hours for a response. The ambassador scrambled to his feet, dignity forgotten in the face of Ben's display of power. This isn't over, Tennyson. For your sake, Ben replied quietly, I hope it is. After the Incursians departed, Kevin whistled low. That was intense. You weren't really going to crush them, right? Of course not, Ben said, though a small part of him had been tempted, a realization that troubled him more than he wanted to admit. But they needed to believe I might. Well, they believed it. So did half our people. Kevin gestured to their forces, who were regarding Ben with a mixture of awe and wariness. Word of this will spread fast. Good, Ben decided. Let everyone know that we're not to be trifled with. News of the confrontation with the Incursians did indeed spread rapidly through both criminal networks and plumber intelligence channels. Within days, Ben's operation had gained a new level of notoriety and respect. Smaller factions began seeking alliances, offering resources and loyalty in exchange for protection. Rival groups gave their territory wide berth, unwilling to risk conflict. Even the plumbers adjusted their approach, establishing a more formal containment perimeter rather than attempting incursions. It was, in effect, tacit recognition of Ben's authority within his claimed space, exactly what he'd been working toward. But with increased power came new challenges. As their operation grew, so did the complexity of managing it. Ben found himself mediating disputes between alien factions, establishing rules for trade and settlement, even creating a rudimentary justice system to handle internal conflicts. You realize what you're doing, right? Kevin asked one evening after Ben had spent hours resolving a territory dispute between 2 merchant groups. You're building a government. Ben looked up from the holographic maps he'd been studying. I'm maintaining order. By creating laws, enforcing them, and punishing violations, Kevin pointed out. That's literally what a government does. It's different, Ben insisted. We're not the plumbers. We don't answer to distant bureaucrats or follow regulations that make no sense in the field. No argument there, Kevin agreed. But face it, Ben. You've gone from outlaw to founder of your own mini-state in less than 6 months. That's pretty impressive. Ben hadn't thought of it in those terms, but Kevin wasn't wrong. What had begun as a refuge, a place to hide from the plumbers, had evolved into something more structured, more permanent. He was no longer just running from his past, he was building a future. The realization was both exhilarating and sobering. People depended on him now, not just as Ben 10, wielder of the Omnitrix, but as a leader who made decisions affecting their lives and livelihoods. I never planned this, Ben admitted. Kevin shrugged. Best plans are the ones that evolve naturally. You saw a need and filled it. These people needed someone who could stand up to both the plumbers and groups like the Incursians. Before Ben could respond, an alarm sounded, proximity alerts indicating an approaching vessel. Not unusual in itself, except for one critical detail, the ship's signature identified it as the Rust Bucket 3, Gwen and Kevin's old ship, now apparently in plumber service. Speaking of the plumbers, Kevin said, moving quickly to a monitoring station. Looks like they're sending envoys. Ben joined him at the console, studying the approaching ship with mixed emotions. No accompanying vessels, no weapons charged. They're coming to talk, not fight. Or it's a trap, Kevin suggested, ever the skeptic. If it is, they picked the wrong messengers, Ben replied, recognizing the energy signatures aboard the ship. That's Gwen. And Grandpa Max. Kevin's expression turned serious. Ben, be careful. Family or not, they're plumbers now. They're here on official business. I know. Ben straightened, decision made. Let them dock. Minimum security presence, no hostile posturing. I want to hear what they have to say. The Rust Bucket 3 docked without incident, its familiar form a strange sight among the more exotic vessels in their hangar. Ben waited alone as the ship's ramp descended, Kevin and security personnel maintaining a discreet distance as agreed. Max Tennyson descended first, still in plumber armor but without visible weapons. Gwen followed, her expression guarded but determined. Both stopped at the bottom of the ramp, clearly awaiting invitation to proceed further. Grandpa. Gwen. Ben acknowledged them with a nod, keeping his voice neutral despite the emotions churning inside him. Welcome to Fort Tennyson. Fort Tennyson. Max repeated, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. You named it after yourself? Actually, the residents named it, Ben corrected. I just didn't object. It's impressive, Gwen admitted, looking around at the bustling hangar. Different from what I expected. Ben raised an eyebrow. Were you expecting something more villainous? Secret lairs and doomsday devices? Given your alliance with Vilgax, the possibility crossed our minds, Max said frankly. A temporary arrangement of convenience, Ben replied. Nothing more. Max nodded, seemingly satisfied with the answer. That's partly why we're here, Ben. To evaluate the situation firsthand, beyond the intelligence reports. And the other part? Ben asked. To make an offer, Gwen said, stepping forward. One you should consider carefully. Ben crossed his arms. I'm listening. Max glanced around the hangar, at the various aliens and humans going about their business. Perhaps somewhere more private. Ben led them to a conference room overlooking the main concourse of the asteroid base. Through the viewport, the full scope of what he'd built was visible, living quarters, trading posts, shipyards, all operating with surprising orderliness. You've created quite a community here, Max observed, genuine respect in his tone. These are people who fell through the cracks, Ben explained. Refugees from wars the plumbers couldn't stop, species facing discrimination, folks who just want to live without constant oversight. And criminals, Gwen added pointedly. Smugglers, thieves, mercenaries. Some, Ben acknowledged. But they follow the rules here. No violence against civilians, no slavery, no targeting plumber personnel unless provoked. Basic decency. Max seemed surprised. You have a code? Of course I do, Ben replied, slightly offended. Did you think I'd completely abandon my principles just because I left the plumbers? Your actions suggested as much, Gwen said. Allying with Vilgax, attacking plumber facilities, threatening Incursion ambassadors. I did what was necessary to establish and protect this place, Ben responded firmly. And I did it with minimal casualties. No deaths attributable to my direct action. Max and Gwen exchanged a look that Ben couldn't quite interpret. That's consistent with our intelligence, Max admitted. Which brings me to why we're here. He placed a data crystal on the conference table, which projected a holographic document, official plumber letterhead, marked with high-level authorization codes. This is a provisional autonomy agreement, Max explained. It would recognize this sector as a semi-independent zone, with limited plumber jurisdiction but protections against hostile incursion by other powers. Ben stared at the document in disbelief. the plumbers are offering to legitimize us. Within strict parameters, Gwen clarified. No harboring of Class A fugitives, no weapons development above Category 3, regular inspections to ensure compliance. In exchange for what? Ben asked skeptically. Your expertise, Max said simply. There are threats emerging that require the Omnitrix's capabilities. Not as a plumber, but as an independent ally. Ben couldn't hide his surprise. After months of conflict, the plumbers were effectively offering a truce, recognition of his territory in exchange for occasional assistance. It was more than he had expected, perhaps more than he deserved. Who authorized this? He asked, studying the document. Magister Patelade doesn't have this kind of authority. It came from higher, Max confirmed. The Magistrata herself. That explained it. The Magistrata, supreme authority of the plumbers, was known for pragmatic decisions that sometimes circumvented standard protocols. If she had decided Ben was more valuable as an ally than an enemy, she would make it happen regardless of objections. I need time to consider this, Ben said finally. And to discuss it with my people. Of course, Max agreed. We'll remain docked until tomorrow. The offer stands until then. As they prepared to leave, Gwen hesitated. Ben, whatever you decide. I want you to know that I never stopped believing in you. Even when we were on opposite sides. The simple statement hit Ben harder than he expected. Despite everything, family connections ran deep. Thanks, Gwen. That means something. After they departed, Kevin emerged from the monitoring room adjacent to the conference chamber. Heard everything. Quite an offer. Too good to be true. Ben wondered aloud. Maybe, maybe not. Kevin leaned against the table, studying the projected document. The restrictions are annoying but not crippling. We'd have to move some of our more questionable operations deeper underground, but most of what we do could continue. And the real benefit would be legitimacy, Ben mused. Protection against the incursions and other hostiles. Official recognition. Kevin nodded. Plus, it gets the plumbers off our backs. No more looking over our shoulders, waiting for the raid that destroys everything. Ben paced the conference room, mind racing. The offer was tempting, a path back from the brink, a way to maintain what he'd built without constant conflict. But it also meant compromise, restrictions, answering to the plumbers in some capacity, however limited. What about Vilgax? He asked suddenly. He falls under the Class A fugitive restriction. Like I said, some operations go deeper underground, Kevin replied with a shrug. Besides, Vilgax comes and goes as he pleases. He's not exactly a permanent resident. Ben stared out at the settlement he'd created, at the people going about their lives, building something here in the space he'd carved out for them. Whatever his personal feelings about the plumbers, he had responsibilities now that extended beyond himself. Call a council meeting, he decided. All faction representatives. We decide this together. The council meeting lasted for hours, filled with heated debate. Some factions favored accepting the plumbers' offer for the security it provided. Others objected vehemently, seeing it as surrender or betrayal of the independence they'd fought for. Ben listened to all sides, weighing the arguments against his own instincts and the realities they faced. This wasn't just about his vendetta against the plumbers anymore. It was about the future of everything they'd built. When everyone had spoken, Ben addressed the council. I've heard all your concerns and considerations, he began, standing at the head of the table. And I've made my decision. We will accept the plumber's offer, with additional conditions of our own. Murmurs spread through the assembled representatives, some approving, others clearly disappointed. Our conditions will include expanded territorial boundaries, amnesty for all current residents regardless of past offenses, and a non-interference clause regarding our internal governance, Ben continued. In exchange, we will provide the assistance they've requested and adhere to the restrictions on harboring high-level fugitives and weapons development. Kevin, sitting nearby, raised an eyebrow. The plumbers might not agree to all that. Then we negotiate, Ben replied firmly. But we negotiate from a position of strength, not desperation. We've proven we can survive without their approval. Now we're choosing cooperation because it benefits our people, not because we fear their power. The council ultimately voted to support Ben's approach, though not unanimously. Some of the more hardline factions expressed concerns about plumber influence corrupting their independence, but most recognized the practical benefits of the arrangement. The next morning, Ben presented their counteroffer to Max and Gwen. As expected, some points required negotiation, but the core agreement remained intact: official recognition of Ben's territory, limited plumber jurisdiction, and mutual assistance against common threats. The Magistrata will need to approve these modifications, Max noted as they finalized the terms. But I believe she will. This serves both our interests. Ben nodded, a weight lifting from his shoulders that he hadn't realized was there. Then we have an agreement. We do, Max confirmed, extending his hand. Ben hesitated only briefly before shaking it, a simple gesture that symbolized so much. Not forgiveness, perhaps, for the events that had driven them apart. Not a return to their former relationship. But a new beginning, a pragmatic peace between former allies who have become adversaries and might, someday, be allies of a different sort again. Before we make this official, Ben said, I need to know something. That containment facility we destroyed, was it really just for containment? Or was there more to it? Max's expression turned grave. It was designed to contain you if necessary, yes. But its primary purpose was protective. Protective? Ben echoed skeptically. The Omnitrix is the most powerful device in the galaxy, Ben. There are forces that would stop at nothing to acquire it, forces that make Vilgax look like an amateur. The facility was meant to provide a safe haven if those forces ever targeted you directly. You mean a prison, Ben said flatly. I mean a fortress, Max corrected. One where you would have been safe while maintaining access to the Omnitrix's capabilities under controlled conditions. Safe but not free, Ben noted. Freedom always has limits, Max replied. Even here, in your independent territory, you've established rules and boundaries. True freedom without responsibility is chaos. Ben couldn't argue with that logic. His own governance of the settlement had proven as much. Freedom required structure to be meaningful, the freedom to live without fear, to build communities, to determine one's own path within reasonable boundaries. Maybe we're not so different after all, Ben admitted reluctantly. Just operating at different scales. Max smiled slightly. I've always said the Omnitrix chose you for a reason, Ben. Your sense of justice, your desire to protect, those things don't disappear just because circumstances change. The observation struck close to home. Despite all that had happened, Ben had never stopped trying to protect, first himself, then Kevin and their allies, then the growing community that relied on him. His methods had changed, his perspective had shifted, but the core impulse remained. We'll make this work, Grandpa, Ben said, the familial term slipping out naturally despite everything. For everyone's benefit. As Max and Gwen prepared to depart with the signed agreement, Kevin approached Ben on the observation deck overlooking the docking bay. So, partners with the plumbers now, Kevin remarked. Never thought I'd see the day. Not partners, Ben corrected. Independent allies. There's a difference. Whatever you call it, it's a new chapter. Kevin glanced at the Rust Bucket 3 as it prepared for departure. What about Vilgax? He won't be happy about this arrangement. Ben had been considering that very question. Vilgax has his own agenda. Always has. This doesn't change that, it just means we need to be more careful about how and when we work with him. Assuming he gives us a choice, Kevin noted dryly. He's not exactly known for respecting boundaries. Let me worry about Vilgax, Ben said. For now, let's focus on strengthening what we've built here. Making it something that lasts. As the Rust Bucket 3 departed, Ben watched it disappear into the starfield beyond their asteroid base. 6 months ago, he had fled from the plumbers in anger and fear. Now he had negotiated with them as an equal, established his own territory, and created something he never could have imagined when he first went on the run. He wasn't a hero anymore, not in the conventional sense. But he wasn't quite a villain either. He existed in the space between, carving out his own definition of justice and freedom. And as the Omnitrix glowed softly on his wrist, Ben Tennyson realized that perhaps this had been his destiny all along, not to serve the system, but to challenge it. To use the power of the Omnitrix not as the plumbers directed, not as Vilgax coveted, but as he himself chose. For the first time since his fall from grace, Ben felt truly at peace with his path. Whatever challenges lay ahead, from the plumbers, from Vilgax, from the countless threats that lurked in the darkness of space, he would face them on his own terms. Not as a hero. Not as a villain. But as himself, Ben Tennyson, wielder of the Omnitrix, protector of Fort Tennyson, and defender of a new kind of freedom. Chapter 3, Power Plays. 6 months later, alarms blared through Fort Tennyson. Ben sprinted down the corridor, slamming the Omnitrix dial as he ran. Green light engulfed him as his body transformed into Fast Track, the speedster alien blurring through the station's levels. "Talk to me, Kevin," Ben called into his comm. "What's the situation?" Kevin's voice crackled back. "Incursion raiders hit our supply depot on the outer rim. They're hitting hard and fast. Casualties? 2 injured, no fatalities. But they're making off with the Xenothium shipment." Ben cursed. Xenothium was rare and insanely valuable, fuel for their deep space operations. "I'm on it. Alert perimeter defense. I want containment fields ready when I drive them back." "Already done, boss." Ben still wasn't fully comfortable with Kevin calling him boss, but today he didn't have time to dwell on it. In 6 months, Fort Tennyson had expanded from a refuge into a legitimate power center. Their agreement with the plumbers had opened trade routes and established diplomatic channels, but it also made them targets for those who viewed them as sellouts. Like the Incursians. Fast Track burst through the airlock and onto a transport pad. Launch sequence, override Tennyson Alpha. The pad lit up, scanning his Omnitrix signature before teleporting him directly to the Outer Rim depot. The technology, stolen from a plumber facility, then modified by their engineers, was technically against their agreement. But Ben operated in gray areas now. Some rules mattered more than others. He materialized inside the depot just as 3 Incursion soldiers were loading the last Xenothium container onto their ship. "Hey, frogs!" Ben called, hitting the Omnitrix symbol to transform into Swampfire. "That's not yours." The lead Incursion turned, eyes widening. "Tennyson. Emperor Milius sends his regards." Swampfire's hands ignited with flames. "Tell your emperor if he wants to negotiate trade, we have channels for that. Stealing isn't one of them." The Incursians opened fire, energy blasts ripping through Swampfire's plant-based body. Ben regenerated instantly, vines extending from his arms to snare the nearest raider. He hurled the alien into his companions, sending all 3 sprawling. "We don't recognize your authority, traitor," the Incursion captain spat. "You were something when you defied the plumbers. Now you're just their pet." That hit a nerve. Ben's flames burned hotter. "I'm nobody's pet." He slammed his palms into the deck plating, sending a wave of fire and plant surging toward the Incursians. They scrambled backward as thorny vines erupted between them and their ship, cutting off their escape. "Last chance," Ben warned, his voice deeper and more menacing than it used to be. "Leave the Xenothium, and I'll let you walk out." The captain laughed. "You still play by hero rules, Tennyson. That's why you'll always lose." He pulled something from his belt, not a weapon, but a control device. Before Ben could react, the captain pressed it, and alarms blared throughout the depot. "Decompression warning, an automated voice announced. Hull breach imminent. Emergency protocols engaged. Ben realized with horror that they'd planted explosives on the outer hull. A breach here would suck everything, including the highly volatile xenothium, into space. You'll die too. Ben shouted over the alarms. The captain grinned. Worth it to take down your operation. Ben hit the Omnitrix again, transforming into Big Chill. The moth-like alien's freezing breath instantly created an ice wall between them and the planted explosives, just as they detonated. The explosion rocked the depot, but Ben's ice shield absorbed the worst of the blast. The Incursians used the distraction to make a break for their ship, but Ben wasn't finished. He phased through the floor, emerging directly in their path as Wrath. Let me tell you something, Incursian invasion force. Wrath bellowed, muscles rippling with barely contained rage. Nobody steals from Fort Tennyson and gets away with it. What followed wasn't pretty. Ben had maintained his no-killing policy, but his definition of reasonable force had evolved over the months. Wrath tore through the Incursion squad with brutal efficiency, leaving broken bones and shattered equipment in his wake. When it was over, the raiders lay groaning on the deck, their ship disabled, the xenothium secured. Ben transformed back to human form as Fort Tennyson security forces arrived through the teleport pads. Secure these idiots and prep them for interrogation. I want to know if this was a random raid or the start of something bigger. Yes sir, the security chief replied, not batting an eye at the violence that had clearly occurred. That too was a change. Ben's people no longer questioned his methods. Results mattered. The how was secondary. Kevin's voice came through his comm, got everything under control. Situation contained. Xenothium secured. Ben rubbed his knuckles absently. But the Incursians are getting bolder. This is the third raid this month. Want me to send a message? Kevin asked, and Ben knew exactly what kind of message he meant. 6 months ago, Ben would have refused immediately. Now he hesitated. Not yet. Let's see what they tell us first. But prepare the countermeasures. If Milius wants a fight, we'll give him one he won't forget. Back at the main base, Ben stalked into the command center, his mood dark. The staff parted before him, sensing his anger. Where once he might have joked or tried to lighten the mood, now he simply accepted their deference as his due. Kevin was waiting, reviewing security footage from the raid. You really did a number on them. They were willing to blow themselves up to damage our operation, Ben replied. That's escalation. Think it's because of our deal with the plumbers? Kevin asked. The Incursians never liked us, but they mostly stayed out of our way before that. Maybe. Ben leaned against the command table. Or Milius is testing us, seeing how we'll respond now that we're legitimate. Either way, we need to show strength. Kevin nodded, unsurprised. I've already got a plan. Hit their supply chain at Sector 7. They're running weapons through there to the front lines of their conflict with the Galvans. Make it happen, Ben said without hesitation. Nothing too destructive. Just enough to make them reconsider their approach. On it, boss. Kevin turned to leave, then paused. Almost forgot. Vilgax's ship entered the system an hour ago. He's requesting permission to dock. Ben's expression darkened further. Timing's interesting. That's what I thought. Grant the request. Have him meet me in the secure conference room. And Kevin? Double the security detail, quietly. Kevin grinned. Already done. Vilgax arrived with his usual imposing presence, tentacles twitching slightly as he surveyed the changes to Fort Tennyson since his last visit months ago. The station had grown considerably, with new sections, improved defenses, and significantly more traffic flowing through its docking bays. Your little kingdom expands, the warlord noted as he entered the conference room, voice betraying neither approval nor disapproval. Ben sat at the head of the table, deliberately casual. We're doing well. No thanks to the Incursians, who just tried to steal a Xenothium shipment. Interesting timing for your visit. You suspect my involvement? Vilgax seemed amused rather than offended. The Incursians are beneath my notice, Tennyson. If I wanted your resources, I would not employ frog mercenaries to acquire them. Fair point. Ben gestured to a seat. So what brings you back to my little kingdom after all this time? Vilgax sat, his armor creaking slightly. I have discovered something that may interest us both. An opportunity. Last time you brought me an opportunity, it turned out to be a plumber trap, Ben reminded him. A miscalculation I have not repeated, Vilgax replied smoothly. This information comes from my most reliable sources. Ben leaned forward. I'm listening. Vilgax activated a holographic projector, displaying schematics for what appeared to be advanced technology. This is a Galvan creation. A prototype enhancement module for the Omnitrix. Ben studied the hologram skeptically. Azimuth doesn't create enhancements. He builds everything into the original design. This was not created by Azimuth, Vilgax explained. But by a rival Galvan scientist named Albedo. Albedo? The name rang a bell. I've heard of him. Supposedly brilliant but unstable. Indeed. He was once Azimuth's assistant before being exiled for attempting to replicate the Omnitrix. Vilgax manipulated the hologram, zooming in on specific components. This device would interface directly with your Omnitrix, bypassing Azimuth's limitations. Ben's interest was genuinely piqued despite his wariness. What kind of limitations? Time restrictions. Transformation constraints. Vilgax's eyes gleamed. The ability to access DNA combinations previously locked away. Fusion forms, Ben murmured, understanding immediately. He'd accidentally accessed such combinations before, alien forms that merged the abilities of multiple species into one powerful entity. Azimuth had later locked that function, calling it too unstable. Precisely, Vilgax confirmed. With this enhancement, you could consciously control such combinations. Imagine the power at your disposal. Ben wasn't naive. 6 months of leading Fort Tennyson had taught him to look beyond the obvious. And what do you get out of this, Vilgax? You've never helped me without expecting something in return. The warlord chuckled, a rumbling sound that still made the hairs on Ben's neck stand up. As observant as ever. Yes, I seek a partnership. This enhancement requires specialized equipment to integrate with the Omnitrix, equipment currently held in a secure plumber research facility. So you need me to help steal it, Ben concluded. And in exchange, I get this enhancement. A mutually beneficial arrangement, Vilgax confirmed. The facility's defenses are considerable, but nothing we cannot overcome together. Ben leaned back, weighing the proposal. The ability to access fusion forms would be a game-changer, not just in conflicts like today's Incursion raid, but in establishing Fort Tennyson's position in the galactic power structure. The plumbers might have granted them semi-autonomy, but real respect came from strength. Still, working with Vilgax was always risky. The warlord had his own agenda, he always did. I'll need to verify this information, Ben said finally. And review the facility's defenses myself. Naturally. Vilgax seemed pleased by Ben's caution. I would expect nothing less from the leader of Fort Tennyson. After Vilgax departed, Kevin entered the conference room, having monitored the conversation from the security center. You're not actually considering this, are you? I'm considering all angles, Ben replied, still studying the holographic schematics Vilgax had provided. Get our tech team to analyze this design. I want to know if it's legitimate or if Vilgax is trying to screw me over. Again, Kevin added pointedly. Again, Ben agreed with a hint of a smile. Also, contact our sources in the plumber network. I want confirmation about this facility and what they're really researching there. Kevin crossed his arms. And if it checks out? You really going to risk our agreement with the plumbers for an Omnitrix upgrade? Ben looked up, his green eyes hardened by months of difficult decisions. Our agreement has exceptions for acting in our own defense. The Incursions just tried to blow up one of our depots. I'd say we need every advantage we can get. That's stretching the interpretation a bit, Kevin noted, though he didn't sound disapproving. That's politics, Ben countered. Besides, the plumbers are probably developing counters to my aliens in that facility anyway. Fair's fair. Kevin nodded, convinced or at least willing to go along. I'll get the intel team on it. If we're doing this, we'll need a solid plan. Work up some options. But Kevin? Ben's voice took on a harder edge. Make sure the plan includes contingencies for Vilgax double-crossing us. Because he will. Already factoring that in, boss. Kevin paused at the door. Just so we're clear, this op would definitely violate our agreement with the plumbers. If they catch us, the deal's off. We go back to being fugitives. Ben nodded, the weight of leadership evident in his expression. Then we don't get caught. 3 days later, Ben's suspicions were partially confirmed. Their intelligence team had verified the existence of the Plummer Research Facility, located in an asteroid belt in a remote system. More concerning was confirmation that the facility was indeed developing technology to counter various alien species, including several in Ben's Omnitrix. The albedo enhancement module also appeared legitimate based on their analysis, though without the actual device, they couldn't confirm all of Vilgax's claims about fusion capabilities. Ben called his inner council together, Kevin, Slazer, and 3 other leaders who had proven their loyalty and value over the months. Here's the situation, Ben began, activating the holographic display in their secure meeting room. The plumbers are developing anti-alien countermeasures at this facility. Specifically, weapons and containment systems designed to neutralize various species. Including your transformations, Slazer noted. Exactly. Despite our agreement, they're preparing for conflict. To be fair, Kevin interjected, we're not exactly innocent here. The teleport tech, the Xenothium stockpile, we've bent the rules too. Preparing defenses isn't the same as developing weapons, Ben countered. They crossed a line. No one challenged him. Ben had earned their respect, and in some cases, their fear. His leadership style had evolved from the democratic approach of the early days to something more decisive. Vilgax has proposed a joint operation, Ben continued. A surgical strike to acquire specific technology. In exchange, we get access to an Omnitrix enhancement. And Vilgax gets what, exactly? Asked Tetrax, a Petrosapian mercenary who had joined their operation recently. That's the question, isn't it? Ben replied. Officially, he wants our help bypassing the facility's defenses. Unofficially. He shrugged. He has his own agenda. Always does. Can we trust him? Tetrax pressed. Absolutely not, Ben said flatly. Which is why I've developed a plan that accounts for his inevitable betrayal. He outlined the operation in detail, a 3-stage infiltration of the Plummer facility. Vilgax's forces would create a diversion, drawing away the main Plummer response. Meanwhile, Ben and a small team would infiltrate from another angle, accessing the secure labs where the target technology was housed. What about Plummer casualties? Slazer asked cautiously. Ben appreciated that this was still a concern for his council. Some lines he refused to cross, despite everything. Non-lethal approaches only. We're there for the tech, not revenge. The council spent hours refining the plan, identifying potential failure points and developing contingencies. When they finished, they had a solid operational strategy that balanced risk with potential reward. One last thing, Ben said as the meeting concluded. This operation remains strictly need to know. If the plumbers get wind of this before we move, we lose our advantage and potentially our agreement with them. Everyone nodded in understanding. Fort Tennyson's semi-legitimate status had brought benefits, but it also created divided loyalties. Not everyone approved of Ben's methods or his continued association with figures like Vilgax. As the others filed out, Kevin remained behind. "You sure about this, Ben? It's a big risk." Ben stared at the holographic display of the Plummer facility. "The incursions are just the beginning, Kevin. There are bigger threats out there. If this enhancement gives us an edge against what's coming, it's worth the risk." "And what exactly is coming?" Kevin asked, frowning. Ben deactivated the display. "I don't know for sure. But Grandpa Max has been making regular inspection visits, asking about our defenses, pushing for joint exercises. The Plumbers are worried about something bigger than us." "All the more reason not to antagonize them," Kevin suggested. "Or all the more reason to be prepared when whatever they're worried about finally shows up," Ben countered. "Either way, I need options. The Omnitrix enhancement gives us that." Kevin nodded slowly. "All right. I'm with you. But for the record, I think Vilgax has an angle we're not seeing." "He always does," Ben agreed. "That's why we'll be ready for him." The operation was set for 3 days later. Vilgax provided additional intelligence on the facility's defenses, some of which contradicted what Ben's team had gathered. Ben incorporated the accurate information and quietly developed countermeasures for the rest, suspecting Vilgax had deliberately included false details to undermine their efforts when the time came. On the day of the heist, Ben stood in his private quarters, staring at his reflection. The past 6 months had changed him physically as well as mentally. His features had hardened, the boyish softness replaced by a sharper, more defined look. His eyes, once bright with idealism, now held a calculating edge. Even his stance had changed, more balanced, more aware, always ready for conflict. The Omnitrix gleamed on his wrist, its green glow reflecting off the polished surfaces of the room. 6 years with the device, and it had never felt more a part of him than now. Not a tool, but an extension of his will. "Status report," he said into his comm. "All teams in position," Kevin replied. "Vilgax's forces are standing by. We launch on your command." "And our contingency measures?" "Ready. If Vilgax tries anything, he'll regret it." Ben nodded to his reflection. "Begin the operation. I'll join you at departure point Sigma." He made his way to the hangar where a specialized stealth craft awaited. Their team was small, just Ben, Kevin, Tetrax, and 2 technical specialists skilled in Plummer security systems. Vilgax would lead his own team from a different approach vector, creating the primary diversion while Ben's group targeted the actual objective. "Comms check," Kevin said as they boarded. "Channel secure," one of the techs confirmed. "Quantum encrypted, frequency shifting every 30 seconds. The Plumbers won't intercept our communications." Ben took his place at the tactical station. Launch sequence initiated. Stealth systems engaged. The craft departed Fort Tennyson silently, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it virtually invisible to conventional sensors. Similar technology had been deemed restricted under their agreement with the Plumbers, another rule Ben had chosen to bend. They traveled for nearly an hour before reaching the asteroid belt where the Plummer facility was hidden. The belt itself provided natural cover, its dense collection of space rocks creating sensor shadows that their ship exploited. "Vilgax's ship is in position," Tetrax reported. "Awaiting your signal." Ben studied the tactical display showing the facility's patrol patterns. "Hold for optimal timing. We need maximum distance between patrols when we make our approach." Tension filled the small craft as they waited. Everyone understood the stakes. Success meant a significant advantage for Fort Tennyson, failure meant potential conflict with the Plumbers and the end of their semi-legitimate status. "Patrol ships reaching maximum separation," Tetrax announced. "Window opening in 30 seconds. Ben activated the comm. "Vilgax, initiate diversion on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." On the tactical display, Vilgax's ship decloaked dramatically, weapons firing into the asteroid field to create a debris cloud that triggered the facility's proximity alarms. Plumber patrol vessels immediately diverted to investigate the disturbance. "That's our cue," Ben said, rising from his station. "Take us in." Their craft glided silently through the asteroid field, approaching the facility from its blind side. They docked with an emergency maintenance airlock, the technical specialists immediately working to bypass its security protocols. "We're in," the lead tech announced moments later. "But the internal sensors will detect the breach within 2 minutes." Ben activated the Omnitrix. "Then we move fast. Stick to the plan. Kevin, you're with me. Tetrax, secure our exit route." He transformed into Big Chill, his moth-like alien form capable of phasing through solid matter. Kevin absorbed the metal from the airlock, covering his body in protective plating. "Ready," Kevin confirmed. Big Chill became intangible, phasing through the inner door with Kevin following through the conventional entrance once the techs bypassed its locks. They moved quickly through maintenance tunnels, avoiding the main corridors where plumber personnel would be responding to Vilgax's diversion. "Primary security hub ahead," Kevin whispered, checking a handheld scanner. 2 guards, standard equipment." Ben nodded, then phased through the ceiling, dropping into the security hub in solid form directly between the startled plumber guards. His freezing breath encased their weapons in ice before they could fire, and 2 precise strikes left them unconscious but unharmed. "Clear," he called to Kevin, who entered and immediately went to work on the security console. "Accessing main systems," Kevin muttered, fingers flying over the controls. "Disabling internal sensors in our target sector, rerouting patrol assignments, creating false alarm in Sector 7 to draw additional personnel away." "Time?" Ben asked, keeping watch at the door. "Almost there, got it. We have a 6-minute window to reach the lab, extract the tech, and get back to the ship." Ben hit the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, transforming from Big Chill to XLR-8. The speedster alien was better suited for the next phase. "Let's not waste it." They sprinted through the facility, Ben's incredible speed allowing him to neutralize any plumbers they encountered before they could sound alerts. Kevin followed in his wake, consulting the facility schematic on his scanner. "Lab access is through that security door," Kevin said, pointing ahead. "Requires plumber DNA authentication." Ben switched forms again, becoming chameleon. The stealth alien approached the door, its adaptive camouflage rendering it nearly invisible. Using one claw, it scratched a sample from the unconscious plumber officer they dragged along, applying it to the scanner. The door slid open with a soft hiss. "I'm really glad you're on our side these days," Kevin remarked as they entered the lab. Ben transformed back to human form, surveying the high-tech research space. "Focus. The integration module should be in a containment field." They split up, searching the lab. The space was filled with experimental technology, much of it clearly designed to counter specific alien abilities. Ben spotted containment units calibrated for pyronites, dampening fields for ectonurites, and gravitic stabilizers that would neutralize a Galilean. His suspicions had been correct, the plumbers were developing countermeasures for his aliens, agreement or no agreement. "Found it," Kevin called from across the lab. Ben joined him in front of a specialized containment unit. Inside floated a device that matched the specifications Vilgax had provided, the integration module they would need to connect Albedo's enhancement to the Omnitrix. "Security level?" Ben asked. Kevin scanned the unit. "Triple redundant. DNA locked, quantum encrypted, with deadman failsafes. Way beyond what I can crack in our timeframe." Ben studied the containment field for a moment, then smiled slightly. "They prepared for a thief. Not for me." He activated the Omnitrix, transforming into gray matter. The tiny Galvan's enormous intellect immediately comprehended the containment system's weaknesses. "Primitive design," gray matter muttered, scampering up the containment unit. The quantum encryption uses a Fibonacci-based algorithm that doesn't account for nonlinear probability cascades. His small fingers manipulated the control circuits with incredible precision. Within seconds, the containment field flickered and died. "Grab it," Ben instructed as he transformed back to human form. Kevin carefully removed the integration module, securing it in a specialized case. 2 minutes until our window closes. Then we're right on schedule, Ben replied. An alarm blared suddenly throughout the facility, not the proximity alert from Vilgax's diversion, but a full security breach warning. "That's not part of the plan," Kevin said, grabbing his weapon. Ben's calm crackled. "Tennyson." Tetrax's voice came through urgently. "Vilgax has abandoned the diversion. He's approaching your position with a boarding party." Ben cursed. "The double-cross comes early. Status of our exit route? Compromised. Plumbers converging from all directions. And Ben? Your cousin is leading them. That complicated things considerably." Gwen knew his tactics, his transformations, his weaknesses. And despite their strained relationship since Ben's departure from the plumbers, he still hesitated to fight her directly. "New plan," Ben decided. "Kevin, take the module and rendezvous with Tetrax. Use escape route Delta. What about you?" Ben activated the Omnitrix again. "I'll handle Vilgax and create a diversion of my own." Kevin looked ready to argue, then nodded grimly. "Don't get captured." "Not planning on it." As Kevin disappeared down a maintenance shaft, Ben transformed into Diamond Head. The crystalline alien's durable form would be effective against both Vilgax's weapons and the plumber's containment technologies. He didn't have to wait long. The lab door burst open, and Vilgax himself stormed in, flanked by his robot drones. "Tennyson," the warlord growled. "I should have anticipated your mistrust." "You mean my common sense?" Diamond Head replied, crystal shards forming along his arms. "You've never kept your word, Vilgax. Why start now?" Vilgax's tentacles twitched in what might have been amusement. "Where is the integration module?" "Safe. Beyond your reach." "Nothing is beyond my reach," Vilgax snarled, activating his armor's weapon systems. "You forget who I am, Tennyson. Perhaps you need a reminder." Energy blasts erupted from his gauntlets, striking Diamond Head's crystalline body. Ben absorbed the impact, redirecting the energy into crystal projectiles that shredded Vilgax's drone escorts. "I haven't forgotten," Ben replied, advancing steadily. "I've just stopped fearing you." That statement was only partially true. Vilgax remained one of the most dangerous beings Ben had ever encountered. But months of building Fort Tennyson, of making hard decisions and facing numerous threats, had changed Ben's perspective. Vilgax was a threat, yes, but no longer the nightmare that had once haunted his dreams. They clashed in the center of the lab, Diamond Head's crystal constructs against Vilgax's advanced weaponry. The battle quickly destroyed the laboratory equipment around them, setting off additional alarms and containment breaches. "You've improved," Vilgax noted, blocking a crystal spike with his armored forearm. "But you still lack the killer instinct." "I don't need to kill to win," Ben countered, though the statement felt increasingly hollow with each passing month at Fort Tennyson. He had maintained his no-killing rule, but the line between necessary force and excessive violence had blurred considerably. Their battle spilled out into the corridor as facility systems began failing around them, casualties of their destructive conflict. Emergency lights pulsed red, and evacuation warnings echoed through the station. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "Ben! Stop!" Gwen stood at the end of the corridor, hands glowing with mana energy. Behind her, a squad of plumbers had taken defensive positions, weapons trained on both Ben and Vilgax. "This has gone far enough," Gwen continued, her expression a mixture of anger and concern. "You're compromising critical systems. The whole facility could decompress." Diamond Head turned slightly, keeping both Gwen and Vilgax in his field of vision. You shouldn't be here, Gwen. This isn't your fight. You made it my fight when you broke into a plumber facility, she shot back. Did our agreement mean nothing to you? The agreement meant nothing to the plumbers, Ben replied bitterly, gesturing at the lab behind him. They're developing weapons specifically designed to neutralize my aliens. Tell me how that's not a breach of trust. Gwen hesitated, her resolve visibly faltering. It's complicated. It always is. Ben turned back to Vilgax, who had used the distraction to activate some device on his gauntlet. What are you doing? Vilgax smiled coldly. Ensuring I don't leave empty-handed. A localized teleportation field surrounded him, and Ben realized with alarm that it was calibrated to the Omnitrix's unique energy signature. Before he could react, the field expanded to include him. Ben! Gwen shouted, flinging a mana bolt that passed harmlessly through the teleportation field. Stay back. Ben warned, trying to disrupt the field with crystal shards. But it was too late. The world dissolved around him as the teleportation took effect. He rematerialized in what appeared to be Vilgax's ship, a containment chamber specifically designed to hold Omnitrix transformations. Vilgax appeared outside the chamber, regarding Ben with something approaching respect. Predictable yet effective, the warlord commented. You created a diversion to allow your team to escape with the module. Admirable tactics. Diamondhead slammed crystal fists against the containment field, which rippled but held. This won't hold me, Vilgax. It doesn't need to hold you indefinitely. Just long enough. Vilgax activated a console. My sensors have located your team's escape craft. Once I have recovered the integration module, I will release you, relatively unharmed. Ben hit the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, transforming into Humungosaur. The dinosaur-like alien's massive strength strained against the containment field with greater force, causing warning lights to flash on Vilgax's console. Your containment technology has improved, Ben noted, increasing his size to maximum. But not enough. With a roar of effort, Humungosaur pushed against the field's limits. Cracks appeared in the energy matrix, spreading rapidly as alarms blared throughout the ship. Vilgax moved quickly to reinforce the field, but Ben had already identified its weak point. One final, focused push, and the containment system overloaded in a spectacular energy discharge that knocked both of them backward. Free from the field, Ben immediately charged Vilgax, massive fists pounding against the warlord's armor. They crashed through bulkheads and control systems, the ship shuddering around them as critical systems failed. Enough! Vilgax shouted, deploying some kind of energy disruptor that forced Ben back to human form. You're destroying my ship. That was kind of the point, Ben replied, breathing hard as the Omnitrix recharged. Now call off your pursuit of my team, or we both go down with this rust bucket. Before Vilgax could respond, the ship rocked violently. External weapons fire, Ben realized. The plumbers had caught up to them. It appears we have a common problem, Vilgax noted grimly. Temporary truce. Ben suggested, his tactical mind already calculating odds of survival. Vilgax nodded curtly. Get to the bridge. I'll stabilize the primary systems. As Vilgax disappeared down a corridor, Ben activated his comm, Kevin, status report. We're clear of the facility, Kevin's voice came through, distorted by interference. Heading to the rendezvous point with the module. Where are you? Aboard Vilgax's ship. He teleported me here, but the containment failed. Need extraction. Ben glanced at a status display showing multiple plumber vessels surrounding them. Negative. Too hot right now. Continue to the rendezvous. I'll find my own way out. Ben, that's an order, Kevin. Get that module to Fort Tennyson. I'll handle this. He cut the communication and made his way to the bridge, where Vilgax was already coordinating defensive measures against the plumber assault. Your former allies are persistent, the warlord remarked as Ben entered. They take theft from their facilities personally, Ben replied dryly. Options for escape. Vilgax gestured to a tactical display. Limited. They've established a containment perimeter. Standard plumber procedure. Which means they've left a gap in Sector 4, Ben noted, pointing to the display. They always do. Procedure flaw that Grandpa Max has complained about for years. Vilgax studied the sector Ben indicated, tentacles twitching thoughtfully. Indeed. But reaching that sector requires passing directly through their heaviest concentration of firepower. Not if we use the asteroid field for cover. Ben traced a path through the dense collection of space rocks. Risky, but possible. For a smaller, more maneuverable vessel, perhaps, Vilgax conceded. This warship cannot navigate such tight confines. Then we use the escape pods, Ben decided. Program the main ship for a diversion course, drawing their attention while we slip away in pods configured to mask our life signs. Vilgax seemed genuinely impressed. Your tactical thinking has evolved considerably, Tennyson. Very well. I will prepare the diversion sequence. They worked quickly, Ben programming the escape pod's trajectory while Vilgax set the main ship's automated systems for the diversion run. Throughout the process, Ben remained acutely aware that Vilgax might betray him again at any moment, and similarly, Vilgax clearly expected treachery from Ben. It was a strange dynamic, this wary cooperation between longtime enemies. But months of sporadic alliance had created an odd sort of respect between them, not trust, never trust, but a recognition of each other's capabilities and a certain predictability to their interactions. Diversion sequence programmed, Vilgax announced. The ship will execute a high-energy burn in 60 seconds, creating a debris field that should mask our pod launch. Ben nodded, finishing his preparations. Pod is ready. Minimal power signature, life support only, trajectory calculated to use the asteroid gravity wells for additional masking. They boarded the escape pod, each watching the other carefully as the countdown progressed. The main ship shuddered around them as plumber weapons fire continued to impact its failing shields. Launch in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the ship's computer announced. The pod ejected from the warship's hull just as the main engines executed their programmed burn, creating a massive energy flare that temporarily blinded the plumber sensors. Their small pod, running with minimal power, slipped into the asteroid field undetected. It appears your strategy was sound, Vilgax acknowledged as they drifted deeper into the field. The plumbers are pursuing the main ship. For now, Ben cautioned. They'll realize the deception eventually. We need to reach the edge of the field before they reorganize their search pattern. They traveled in tense silence for several minutes, the pod navigating automatically through the dense asteroid field. Occasionally, the comm would crackle with plumber communications, indicating their search was still focused on the decoy warship. Your leadership of Fort Tennyson has changed you, Tennyson, Vilgax said finally, breaking the silence. You think more like a conqueror now. Less like a hero. I'm not a conqueror, Ben replied sharply. I protect my people. By any means necessary, Vilgax observed. Including theft, sabotage, and alliance with beings you once considered enemies. The distinction between hero and conqueror grows thin. Ben wanted to argue, but Vilgax's words cut uncomfortably close to thoughts he'd been having himself lately. His methods had changed, become harder, more pragmatic. Decisions he would never have considered as a hero now seemed logical, necessary even. I do what's required, he said finally. The galaxy doesn't operate on simple hero and villain definitions. I learned that the hard way. Indeed. Vilgax seemed almost approving. Perhaps there is hope for you yet. Before Ben could respond, the pod's proximity alarm sounded. A plumber scout ship had broken from the main pursuit, heading toward the asteroid field. They've figured it out, Ben muttered, checking the tactical display. Adjusting course to maintain cover. The pod changed trajectory, diving deeper into the asteroid field where the larger Plummer vessel would struggle to follow. But the adjustment brought them dangerously close to several unstable asteroids showing signs of volatile mineral composition. Risky navigation, Vilgax noted, observing the readouts. Better than capture, Ben replied. We just need to. A sudden impact rocked the pod as a small asteroid fragment struck their hull. Warning lights flashed as the pod's stabilizers failed, sending them into an uncontrolled spin. Hull breach detected, the pod's computer announced calmly. Emergency protocols engaged. Ben scrambled for the control panel, fighting against the spin to stabilize their trajectory. Diverting power to stabilizers. Too late, Vilgax said grimly, pointing to the viewport where a massive asteroid loomed directly in their path. Brace for impact. The collision was violent but not catastrophic. Their reduced speed and the relatively low density of the asteroid prevented immediate destruction, but the pod was heavily damaged, its propulsion system offline and life support failing. Status? Ben asked, picking himself up from the floor where the impact had thrown him. Vilgax examined the damaged controls. Main systems inoperative. Communications offline. Life support at 30% and falling. Perfect, Ben muttered. He activated the Omnitrix, cycling through available aliens. I need something that can survive in space, repair the pod, or both. The Plummer vessel approaches, Vilgax warned, looking through the cracked viewport. We have minutes at most. Ben selected Jury Rig, the small, gremlin-like alien with an instinctual understanding of technology. Fix, 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 the alien cackled, immediately tearing into the pod's damaged systems. Vilgax watched with grudging fascination as Jury Rig disassembled and reconfigured the pod's technology at incredible speed, creating new circuits and systems from the damaged components. Impressive, the warlord admitted. But insufficient. Even repaired, this pod cannot outrun a Plummer scout ship. Jury Rig paused his manic repair work, red eyes narrowing thoughtfully. Then he grinned, revealing sharp teeth. No run. Hide. With renewed vigor, the alien tore apart the pod's remaining systems, reconfiguring them into something entirely different, a cloaking device that would mask their presence from Plummer sensors. Clever, Vilgax acknowledged as the device activated, bending light and energy around their damaged pod. But will it hold? Jury Rig hit the Omnitrix symbol, transforming into gray matter for the precision adjustments needed to stabilize the makeshift cloaking system. If my calculations are correct, it will mask our presence for approximately 17 minutes. Sufficient time for the Plummer vessel to complete its search pattern and move to the next sector. And if your calculations are incorrect? Gray matter smiled thinly. Then we experience the hospitality of a Plummer detention cell. Together. I'm sure you'd enjoy that. They fell silent as the Plummer scout ship approached, its searchlights sweeping over the asteroid's surface. Through the viewport, Ben could see the ship clearly, and recognized with a jolt that Gwen was visible on its bridge, directing the search operation. For a moment, their eyes seemed to meet across the void of space, and Ben felt a pang of regret for how things had changed between them. Gwen had been his partner, his conscience, his balance for so many years. Now she was his pursuer, dedicated to bringing him to justice for violations of the very agreement she had helped negotiate. The Plummer ship lingered, its sensors sweeping back and forth across their position. Ben held his breath, aware that even the slightest power fluctuation could reveal their presence. Beside him, Vilgax remained unnaturally still, perhaps recognizing the same danger. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the scout ship adjusted its course and moved away, continuing its search pattern elsewhere in the asteroid field. Ben transformed back to human form, slumping against the damaged bulkhead. That was too close. Indeed, Vilgax agreed. Your cousin's determination is formidable. She gets that from Grandpa Max, Ben replied, a hint of pride in his voice despite everything. So, what now? The pod's propulsion is offline, and we're stuck on an asteroid in the middle of nowhere. Vilgax activated a device on his gauntlet. Now we wait. My backup systems have been transmitting our location to my fleet. A recovery vessel will arrive within hours. And then, Tennyson, we part ways. You return to your Fort Tennyson with the knowledge that our brief alliance has once again ended in betrayal and conflict. A predictable outcome, is it not? Ben couldn't help but laugh, the sound strange in the damaged pod. Completely predictable. You know, in a weird way, you're one of the most consistent relationships in my life right now. You always betray me, I always escape, and somehow we end up working together again anyway. A curious observation, Vilgax replied, something like amusement in his voice. Perhaps there is a lesson in that consistency. Yeah. The lesson is I should stop trusting you. And yet you never learn it. Curious indeed. They fell into silence again, conserving the pod's failing oxygen supply as they waited for rescue. Ben's thoughts turned to Fort Tennyson, to Kevin and the team hopefully safe with the integration module, to the Omnitrix enhancement that had precipitated this entire operation. Was it worth it? The risk, the damage to their agreement with the plumbers, the renewed conflict with Vilgax? The practical leader he had become said yes, power was necessary, advantages essential in the dangerous game he now played. But some remnant of the hero he had been whispered doubts, questioned methods, wondered at costs. Vilgax's recovery ship arrived 4 hours later, a sleek scout vessel that docked with their damaged pod and extracted them without incident. True to his word, Vilgax ordered the ship to transport Ben to the edge of Fort Tennyson's territory before continuing on to his own destination. Our paths will cross again, Tennyson, Vilgax said as they prepared to part ways. Perhaps as allies, perhaps as enemies. Probably both, knowing us, Ben replied. Just a heads up, if you come after the integration module, you'll find Fort Tennyson less welcoming than last time. Vilgax's mouth tentacles twitched in what might have been a smile. I would expect nothing less. Until next time. Back at Fort Tennyson, Ben's return was met with relief and celebration. His inner circle had feared the worst when communication was lost, and preparations for a rescue operation had already begun. Don't ever pull that self-sacrificing hero stuff again, Kevin scolded as they met in the command center. We can't afford to lose you. Noted, Ben replied, genuinely touched by the concern. Status of the module? Secure in the research lab. Our tech team is already working to understand its integration requirements. Kevin hesitated. There's something else you should know. The plumbers have formally protested the raid. They're claiming we violated our agreement. Of course they are, Ben sighed. What exactly do they know? They know we took the integration module. They know Vilgax was involved. And they're demanding its return, along with a formal apology and renewed restrictions on our operations. Ben snorted. Not happening. Especially not after what we discovered in that lab. Yeah, about that, Kevin said cautiously. I've been reviewing the data we collected. Those countermeasures. They weren't just for you, Ben. They were designed for multiple hostile species, including several that don't appear in any known database. That caught Ben's attention. Unknown aliens. You're sure? Positive. The plumbers are preparing for something big, something they haven't shared with us despite our agreement. This confirmed Ben's earlier suspicions. Something was coming, something that had the plumbers worried enough to develop specialized countermeasures and keep the information compartmentalized. All the more reason to proceed with the enhancement, Ben decided. When can we test it? The team says they'll be ready in 48 hours. But Ben, there's significant risk. This is experimental tech designed by Albedo. It could damage the Omnitrix, or worse. Calculated risk, Ben replied dismissively. I need every advantage for what's coming. Kevin looked troubled. You sound more like Vilgax every day, you know that. The comparison stung more than Ben wanted to admit. I'm nothing like Vilgax. No. Power at any cost. Preparation for unknown threats. Willingness to risk everything for an advantage. Kevin shook his head. Just be careful, man. Some lines, once crossed, you can't uncross. Ben wanted to argue, but the events of the past day, the raid, the confrontation with Gwen, the uneasy alliance with Vilgax, had left him drained. Instead, he simply nodded. I'll take it under advisement. Now, I need to prepare for the plumber response. They won't let this go unanswered. Sure enough, the plumbers made their move the very next day. Not with force, as Ben had half expected, but with diplomacy, in the form of Max Tennyson himself, arriving on a diplomatic shuttle with minimal escort. They met in Ben's office, a space designed to project authority while maintaining connections to his past. Trophies from various missions decorated the walls, alongside sophisticated security systems and tactical displays showing Fort Tennyson's defenses. Grandpa, Ben acknowledged, not rising from behind his desk. This is an official visit, I assume. Max's expression was grave but not hostile. Official and personal, Ben. You've put me in a difficult position. I could say the same about you, Ben countered. We found the weapons lab, Grandpa. Anti-alien countermeasures specifically designed for Omnitrix transformations. Care to explain how that fits with our agreement? Max didn't deny it. Those countermeasures are defensive, Ben. Insurance policies we hope never to use. Against me. Not just you. Max sat in the chair opposite Ben's desk, looking suddenly older and more tired than Ben remembered. There's something coming, Ben. Something big enough that the Magistrata authorized those countermeasures personally. What is it? Ben asked, his anger tempered by genuine concern. Max wasn't one for exaggeration or manipulation. We don't know exactly, Max admitted. Just fragments. Signals from deep space. Anomalies in the null-void barriers. Reports of entire planets going dark without explanation. Whatever it is, it's powerful enough to worry even Azimuth. That was significant. The Galvan creator of the Omnitrix rarely concerned himself with transient threats. Why keep it from me? Ben asked. If it's that serious, shouldn't we be working together? The Magistrata believed you were unpredictable. Your alliance with Vilgax, your growing power base here, it raised concerns about your priorities. My priority has always been protection, Ben insisted. Of Earth, of innocent lives, of the people who depend on me. That hasn't changed. Your methods have, Max pointed out gently. The Ben I raised would never have allied with Vilgax, never have raided a plumber facility, never have threatened an Incursion ambassador. Ben couldn't deny the truth in that statement. The Ben you raised was naive. He thought good intentions were enough, that playing by the rules would always lead to the right outcome. I learned differently. I understand that, Max said, surprising Ben. Better than you might think. But there are lines, Ben. Lines that, once crossed, change who you are fundamentally. Like developing weapons specifically designed to neutralize my aliens? Ben asked pointedly. Max didn't flinch. Yes. Like that. It was a line I didn't want to cross, but felt I had to. For the greater good. The parallel was uncomfortably clear. They had both made compromises, crossed lines, justified actions in the name of protection and preparation. So where does that leave us? Ben asked finally. At a crossroads, Max replied. The Magistrata has authorized me to offer amended terms to our agreement. Broader autonomy for Fort Tennyson, fewer inspections, more access to plumber. Intelligence, in exchange for the return of the integration module and your commitment to consult with the plumbers before any major operations. It was a generous offer, more generous than Ben had expected. But there was a catch, and he knew it. And Vilgax? I assume a complete severance of ties is part of the deal. Non-negotiable, Max confirmed. He's too dangerous, Ben. Whatever he's told you about that enhancement module, whatever he's promised, it comes with strings that will strangle you eventually. Ben leaned back in his chair, considering. The enhanced Omnitrix capabilities would be a significant advantage, but was it worth the continued conflict with the plumbers? Worth rejecting Max's olive branch? Worth the risk of whatever threat was looming on the horizon? I need time to consider the offer, he said finally. And to consult with my counsel. Max nodded, seeming neither surprised nor disappointed. You have 48 hours. After that, the Magistrata will consider the agreement formally violated and act accordingly. After Max departed, Ben called his inner council together and presented the plumber's offer. Opinions were divided, with some arguing for acceptance of the generous terms while others insisted that returning the module would show weakness. There's another consideration, Ben added after everyone had spoken. Grandpa Max claims there's a major threat emerging, something big enough to worry Azimuth himself. The countermeasures we found were part of their preparation. All the more reason to keep the enhancement module, Slazer argued. We'll need every advantage against such a threat. Or all the more reason to realign with the plumbers, Tetrax countered. Combined resources against a common enemy. Kevin, who had remained uncharacteristically quiet throughout the discussion, finally spoke. What about option 3? Which is? Ben asked. We keep the module, accept the amended agreement, and don't tell them about our plans for the Omnitrix enhancement. Maintain the alliance for the greater threat, while pursuing our own advantage separately. It was deceptive, pragmatic, and exactly the kind of thinking that had become Fort Tennyson's hallmark under Ben's leadership. They'd never trust us if they found out, Ben noted, though he was clearly considering the approach. So we make sure they don't find out, Kevin replied simply. Compartmentalize the enhancement project, maintain deniable plausibility, play the diplomatic game while strengthening our position. The council ultimately voted to pursue Kevin's suggestion, with Ben casting the deciding vote after careful consideration. It wasn't the heroic choice, perhaps, but it was the practical one. Fort Tennyson would benefit from renewed plumber alliance while maintaining their technological advantage. The integration module would be officially returned, with a non-functional replica taking its place, a deception that required their best technical experts to execute convincingly. 2 days later, Ben formally accepted the plumber's amended terms, signing the agreement in a ceremony attended by Max and several high-ranking plumber officials. The fake integration module was returned with appropriate diplomatic language about misunderstandings and shared security concerns. I hope this marks a new chapter in our relationship, Max said afterward, shaking Ben's hand for the cameras. So do I, Grandpa, Ben replied, and meant it, though perhaps not in the way Max assumed. The real work began immediately after the plumbers departed. In a secure lab deep within Fort Tennyson, Ben gathered with Kevin and their top scientists to integrate Albedo's enhancement with the Omnitrix. The final analysis confirms it should work, the lead scientist reported, displaying complex schematics. The integration module will interface with the Omnitrix's transformation matrix, allowing conscious control of DNA combination sequences. And the risks? Ben asked. Significant, the scientist admitted. Potential destabilization of your current transformation capabilities. Possible energy feedback that could damage the Omnitrix itself. And unknown effects on your human physiology from enhanced alien DNA integration. Ben stared at the Omnitrix, weighing the potential against the risks. Vilgax wanted this technology badly enough to betray me, again. Either it's incredibly valuable, or incredibly dangerous. Probably both. You still want to proceed? Kevin asked. Ben nodded slowly. We've come too far to back down now. And if Grandpa Max is right about what's coming, we'll need every advantage we can get. The procedure was complex, requiring Ben to cycle through multiple alien forms while the scientists carefully integrated the module with the Omnitrix's systems. The process was painful at times, the Omnitrix resisting external modification as if it possessed its own will, which, Ben sometimes suspected, it did. Finally, after hours of careful work, the integration was complete. The Omnitrix looked unchanged externally, but Ben could feel the difference immediately, a new depth to its energy, a broader connection to its alien database. "How do you feel?" Kevin asked, concern evident in his voice. Ben flexed his hand, the Omnitrix gleaming on his wrist. "Different. More, connected to the watch somehow. The enhancement appears stable," the lead scientist reported, monitoring readings. "All baseline functions maintaining nominal parameters." "Let's test it," Ben decided, activating the Omnitrix. Instead of the standard transformation sequence, the interface displayed a new option, dual selection. Ben carefully chose two alien forms, Heat Blast and Diamond Head. Green light flashed, more intensely than normal, and the transformation was accompanied by a strange sensation, as if Ben's consciousness was splitting and recombining simultaneously. When the light faded, Ben had transformed into something entirely new, a crystalline humanoid with molten fire visible through cracks in its diamond-like skin. Heat radiated from the hybrid form, while crystal structures grew and shifted across its surface. "Incredible," Kevin breathed, stepping back from the intense heat. "You did it. A fusion form." The hybrid alien examined its hands, which could generate both flames and crystal projectiles. "Diamond Blast," Ben named it, his voice a strange harmony of both constituent aliens. "Power readings are off the charts," the scientist reported excitedly. "Energy output exceeding the sum of both original forms." Ben tested the hybrid's abilities, creating crystalline structures infused with thermal energy that could be launched as explosive projectiles. The level of control was unprecedented, the combination of powers creating options neither original form possessed individually. "This changes everything," Ben said, returning to human form with a flash of green light. "With this enhancement, Fort Tennyson's position is secured against any threat, plumber, incursion, or whatever's coming from deep space." Kevin nodded, though his expression remained troubled. "Just remember what I said about crossing lines, Ben. Power like this, it changes you." "I know," Ben acknowledged. "But sometimes change is necessary. Evolution, adaptation, that's how you survive in a hostile universe." Over the following weeks, Ben mastered the enhancement, learning to combine various alien forms for specific tactical advantages. Each fusion created new possibilities, new powers, new strategies for defending Fort Tennyson and projecting force throughout their territory. The Incursions, having tested Ben's resolve once more and found it unbreakable, withdrew their forces from contested regions. Other factions, witnessing demonstrations of Ben's enhanced abilities, sought alliances rather than conflict. Fort Tennyson's influence expanded without a shot being fired, power recognized and respected across multiple systems. The plumbers, true to their word, shared intelligence about the emerging threat, though Ben suspected they withheld crucial details. Reports of spatial anomalies increased, along with disappearances of ships and even small outposts near the edges of charted space. Ben prepared Fort Tennyson for whatever was coming, establishing deeper defenses and contingency plans for various scenarios. The enhancement gave him confidence, perhaps too much, as Kevin occasionally suggested, that they could handle any threat. Then, 3 months after the enhancement integration, everything changed. A distress signal reached Fort Tennyson from a plumber outpost at the edge of their territory, fragmentary, desperate, cut off mid-transmission. Ben immediately dispatched a scout team to investigate. They returned with disturbing news. The outpost had been completely destroyed, its personnel missing, its systems corrupted with an unknown technology that defied analysis. "Whatever did this was unlike anything we've encountered," the scout leader reported. "The molecular decomposition patterns don't match any known weapon signature." More concerning were the final words from the outpost's transmission, "They're coming for the Omnitrix." Ben called an emergency meeting with his inner council, sharing the findings and his growing concern. This matches the pattern Grandpa Max described, the threat they've been preparing for. Should we contact the plumbers? Tetrak suggested. Share what we found. Ben considered it, then nodded. Yes, but carefully. We don't reveal our enhanced capabilities unless absolutely necessary. He reached out to Max, arranging a secure communication. His grandfather's expression was grim as Ben related the scout team's findings. It started, then, Max said quietly. Sooner than we expected. What exactly has started, Grandpa? Ben pressed. It's time for full disclosure. What are we facing? Max hesitated, then seemed to reach a decision. They're called the Contumelia. An ancient race from beyond our universe, collectors of power and technology. They've been dormant for millennia, but something has awakened them. And they want the Omnitrix, Ben concluded. Among other things. But yes, the Omnitrix is likely their primary target in this sector. It represents the pinnacle of transformation technology, exactly the kind of power they seek to collect. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Ben demanded, anger flaring. I could have been preparing specifically for this threat. The Magistrata feared that knowledge of the Contumelia might push you toward extreme measures, Max admitted. Given your recent history, the concern wasn't unfounded. Ben wanted to argue but couldn't. His pursuit of the enhancement module, his increasingly pragmatic approach to power, they validated the Magistrata's concerns, however much he disliked admitting it. Well, now. They're here, Ben said instead. So how do we stop them? We're still developing countermeasures, Max replied. Azimuth has been working on technology that might repel them, but it's not complete. For now, our best strategy is coordinated defense, pooling all available resources against their incursion. Fort Tennyson stands ready, Ben assured him. Send what you have on these Contumelia. We'll integrate it into our defense planning. After the communication ended, Ben turned to his counsel. Opinions? The timing is suspicious, Slazer noted. These Contumelia appear just as we've enhanced the Omnitrix. It cannot be coincidence. Maybe they detected the energy signature from the enhancement process, Kevin suggested. If they're as advanced as Max says, they might have technology that could sense that kind of power fluctuation across space. Whatever brought them here, we need to be ready, Ben decided. Full defensive posture, all systems at maximum alert. And. He hesitated briefly, activate Project Phoenix. Project Phoenix was Fort Tennyson's most classified initiative, a last-resort defensive system built around Ben's enhanced transformation capabilities. It would allow him to channel the Omnitrix's power on an unprecedented scale, creating effects that rivaled small stellar events. Are you sure? Kevin asked, clearly concerned. Phoenix hasn't been fully tested. The power requirements alone could destabilize the station's core. We test it now, before we need it for real, Ben replied firmly. If these Contumelia are as powerful as Grandpa Max suggests, we'll need every advantage. The council dispersed to implement Ben's orders, leaving him alone with Kevin in the command center. You're planning something you're not telling the council, Kevin observed once they were alone. I know that look. Ben smiled grimly. You know me too well. Yes, there's another angle here. If the Contumelia are collectors of powerful technology, then the enhanced Omnitrix is the perfect bait. You're going to use yourself as bait? Kevin shook his head in disbelief. That's insane, even for you. Not myself, Ben corrected. A version of myself. The enhancement module allows for more than just fusion forms, Kevin. According to our scientists, it can potentially create fully independent energy duplicates, copies of me with limited transformation abilities. You never mentioned that capability before. Because it's dangerous, unstable, and possibly irreversible if something goes wrong, Ben admitted. But against a threat like this, we need options that our enemies won't anticipate. Kevin studied his friend with growing concern. This is exactly the kind of extreme measure the plumbers were worried about. You're pushing the Omnitrix beyond its designed parameters, risking yourself and potentially everyone around you. If I don't, and the Contumelia get the Omnitrix anyway, the risk is infinitely worse, Ben countered. Sometimes the only way to defeat a superior enemy is to become something they can't predict or counter. And what happens to Ben Tennyson in the process? Kevin asked quietly. The real one, not the energy duplicate? Ben had no answer for that, or perhaps he didn't want to acknowledge the one he had. The truth was, he had crossed so many lines already that this one seemed insignificant by comparison. If sacrificing some part of his humanity meant protecting Fort Tennyson and stopping the Contumelia, it was a price he was willing to pay. The Contumelia arrived 3 days later. Their ship appeared without warning, materializing directly outside Fort Tennyson's defensive perimeter as if conventional space meant nothing to them. It defied description, not quite solid, shifting between states in a way that hurt the eyes to observe. Energy readings are fluctuating wildly, the sensor operator reported as alarms sounded throughout the station. It's like the ship exists in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Defensive systems? Ben asked, standing at the command center's main viewport. Online, but targeting systems can't establish a lock. The ship's position is too uncertain. Ben nodded grimly. Then we stick to the plan. Prepare for potential boarding actions. All non-essential personnel to evacuation points. As if in response to his words, the Contumelia ship pulsed with energy, and a transmission penetrated Fort Tennyson's communication systems despite all security protocols. Benjamin Tennyson, a voice spoke, somehow both singular and plural, male and female, young and ancient all at once. Bearer of the Omnitrix. We have come for you. Ben activated the station-wide communication. This is Tennyson. I don't know who you are or what you want, but you're violating sovereign territory. Withdraw immediately. We are the Contumelia, the voice replied, confirming Max's intelligence. We collect power. We preserve uniqueness. We have come for the Omnitrix, the pinnacle of transformation technology. You will surrender it willingly or unwillingly. The choice affects only the process, not the outcome. Many have tried to take the Omnitrix, Ben replied, buying time as Fort Tennyson's defense is oriented toward the impossible ship. None have succeeded. Others were limited by dimensional constraints. We are not. The transmission ended abruptly, replaced by alarms as multiple breaches were detected throughout the station. They're inside. Kevin reported, pulling up security feeds that showed strange, shifting figures materializing in corridors and common areas. Bypassed all external defenses. The Contumelia defied easy description, their forms shifting between states, sometimes appearing humanoid, other times abstract geometric patterns, occasionally resembling nothing recognizable at all. They moved through Fort Tennyson's defenses as if they were inconsequential, adaptive shields neutralizing energy weapons, phase-shifted bodies passing through physical barriers. Implement Containment Protocol Omega, Ben ordered. All security teams fall back to defensive positions. Evacuate civilians through emergency teleport systems. As chaos erupted throughout the station, Ben turned to Kevin. It's time. Activate Project Phoenix. Kevin hesitated only briefly before inputting the command codes. Deep within Fort Tennyson's core, specialized systems powered up, channeling energy directly to the command center where Ben stood. Project Phoenix online, Kevin confirmed. Energy conduit stable. Ready for Phase 1. Ben nodded, stepping onto a circular platform in the center of the command room. Begin sequence. The platform illuminated with intricate patterns as energy flowed into and around Ben. The Omnitrix on his wrist glowed brighter than ever before, responding to the external power source. Remember the plan, Ben told Kevin as the energy built around him. No matter what happens, stick to the sequence. I still think this is crazy, Kevin muttered, but his hands moved over the controls with practiced precision. Ben activated the Omnitrix, but instead of selecting a specific alien, he triggered the enhanced mode they had developed for Project Phoenix. Green light engulfed him, so intense that everyone in the command center had to shield their eyes. When the light faded, Ben had transformed into something beyond any previous form, a being of pure energy, the Omnitrix symbol at its center pulsing with power that connected to Fort Tennyson systems. Energy duplication sequence initiated, Kevin announced, monitoring the readings carefully. Creating first quantum duplicate. The energy being that was Ben separated, dividing into two identical forms that gradually differentiated, one maintaining the pure energy state, the other solidifying into human form. Duplication successful, the human Ben confirmed, stepping off the platform while his energy duplicate remained connected to the station's systems. Quantum entanglement stable. This was the heart of Project Phoenix, creating a quantum duplicate of Ben that remained connected to both the original and to Fort Tennyson's defensive systems. The duplicate would serve as bait for the Quantumania while simultaneously channeling the station's full power through the enhanced Omnitrix. "They're approaching the command center," Kevin warned, watching security feeds that showed Quantumania entities converging on their position. "Bypassing all security checkpoints." "Right on schedule," Ben noted grimly. He activated his Omnitrix, transforming into XLR-8. "I'll intercept and lead them on a chase through the designated corridors. Keep the energy duplicate safe until they're in position." Before Kevin could respond, Ben was gone, racing through the station at incredible speed. He encountered the first Quantumania entities at Junction 7, deliberately allowing himself to be seen before speeding away. The Omnitrix bearer attempts deception, the multi-layered voice echoed throughout the station. "We perceive the quantum division." Impressive, but insufficient. Despite their awareness of Ben's strategy, the Quantumania pursued him through the station, drawn to the Omnitrix's energy signature as he had predicted. Meanwhile, the energy duplicate in the command center grew stronger, absorbing power from Fort Tennyson's core and channeling it through the enhanced Omnitrix. Phase 2 energy levels reached, Kevin reported through Ben's comm, "Ready for convergence on your mark." Ben led the Quantumania entities into the central atrium, a massive open space designed specifically as the focal point for Project Phoenix. As they entered, containment fields activated, not to trap the Quantumania directly, but to stabilize the dimensional space around them. "Now!" Ben shouted, transforming from XLR-8 into a fusion form, a combination of Diamond Head and Automix that glowed with nuclear energy channeled through crystalline structures. In the command center, the energy duplicate surged with power, connected to Ben through their quantum entanglement. Energy flowed from the station's core, through the duplicate, to Ben in the atrium, creating a feedback loop of escalating power. "This is unexpected," the Quantumania voice acknowledged, a hint of concern finally breaking through its multidimensional calm. "You have exceeded predicted capabilities." "You came for the Omnitrix," Ben replied, his voice distorted by energy cascading through his fusion form. "Here it is, in ways you couldn't possibly anticipate." The fusion form began to glow brighter, drawing more power through the quantum link. The Quantumania entities attempted to retreat, but the dimensional stabilization fields prevented their usual phase-shifting escape. "Disengage, Benjamin Tennyson," the voice urged, now decidedly alarmed. "This energy pattern is unsustainable. It will destroy you along with us." "Maybe," Ben acknowledged, raising hands that crackled with nuclear energy contained within crystalline matrices. "But Fort Tennyson will survive. And sometimes, that's the only victory that matters." With a final surge of power from the energy duplicate, Ben released the accumulated energy in a controlled but devastating blast. The atrium filled with light beyond normal perception, energy cascading across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. The Quantumania entities caught within were not destroyed, their nature made conventional destruction impossible, but they were disrupted, their multidimensional forms scattered across spacetime, unable to maintain cohesion. The backlash hit Ben with equal force, overwhelming the fusion form and knocking him back to human form in an explosion that shattered the atrium's reinforced walls. He collapsed to the floor, the Omnitrix sparking and fluctuating on his wrist. In the command center, the energy duplicate destabilized, its connection to Ben disrupted by the massive energy discharge. Kevin watched in horror as it collapsed into a swirling vortex of power before dissipating entirely. "Ben," he shouted into the comm, "status report." "Ben." There was no response from the atrium, now filled with smoke and debris. Security teams rushed in, finding Ben unconscious but alive, the Omnitrix on his wrist cycling through alien forms randomly before stabilizing. Outside Fort Tennyson, the Contumelia ship flickered uncertainly, its dimensional stability compromised by the connection to its disrupted occupants. Then, with a final pulse of exotic energy, it vanished, retreating to whatever space beyond conventional reality it called home. Ben regained consciousness in the medical bay hours later, his body battered but recovering. The Omnitrix appeared undamaged despite the energy overload, though detailed scans revealed subtle changes to its internal configuration. "Did it work?" he asked Kevin, who had refused to leave his bedside. "The Contumelia are gone," Kevin confirmed. "Their ship disappeared after you disrupted the boarding party. Whether they're destroyed or just retreated, we don't know for sure." Ben tried to sit up, wincing at the pain. "The energy duplicate collapsed after the power surge. The scientists are still analyzing the data, but preliminary findings suggest the duplication process can't be repeated. Whatever you did, it fundamentally altered the enhancement module's integration with the Omnitrix." "Worth it," Ben decided after a moment's consideration. "If it drove the Contumelia away." "For now," Kevin agreed. "But there's something else you should know. The plumbers have been trying to contact you since the incident. Apparently, they detected the energy surge all the way from Earth. Grandpa Max is on his way, and he doesn't sound happy." Ben wasn't surprised. Project Phoenix had required energy levels far beyond what the plumbers would consider acceptable under their agreement. The enhancement itself was a violation, and now its use against the Contumelia had revealed its existence unmistakably. "We did what was necessary," he said simply. "I'll deal with the fallout." Max arrived the next day, accompanied by Gwen and a contingent of high-ranking plumbers. They were escorted to Fort Tennyson's council chamber, where Ben waited, still bandaged but insisting on meeting them standing rather than from a hospital bed. "You lied to us," Max said without preamble, his disappointment palpable. "The integration module you returned was a fake. You kept the real one and used it to enhance the Omnitrix beyond safe parameters." "I did what was necessary to protect my people," Ben replied calmly. "And as it turns out, to stop the Contumelia, a threat you knew about but didn't fully disclose to me." "That doesn't justify violating our agreement," Gwen interjected. "We trusted you, Ben. We put our reputations on the line to negotiate that deal. And I'm supposed to prioritize your reputations over lives?" Ben challenged. "The enhancement worked. The Contumelia are gone. Fort Tennyson stands. By any objective measure, that's a success." "At what cost?" Max asked quietly. "Look at yourself, Ben. Look at what you've become. The risks you took, the lines you crossed, they've changed you. The Ben I knew would never have considered something as dangerous as Project Phoenix. The Ben you knew couldn't have stopped the Contumelia," Ben shot back. "Sometimes evolution isn't pretty, Grandpa. Sometimes it requires becoming something new, something harder." Gwen stepped forward, her expression softening slightly. "We're not just concerned about the agreement, Ben. We're concerned about you. The energy readings from what you did, they weren't just powerful, they were unsustainable for human physiology. You could have died." "I knew the risks," Ben replied, though her concern touched something he tried to bury beneath months of pragmatic leadership. "And I accepted them, because that's what leaders do. They take risks so others don't have to." Max sighed heavily. "The Magistrata has reviewed the situation. Given the Contumelia threat and the outcome of your intervention, she's willing to overlook something went wrong with this response. Please try again. Create the next chapter. The end." Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.